All right, we should be live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's stream. I am joined by the legendary Arch.
Hello. Happy to be here.
Yes. And I want to quickly, before we get underway with like questions and going back and forth talking about this whole debacle with GW and the Femstodes thing, I do want to personally thank you for coming on and talking. It means a lot to be able to like converse back and forth with fellow hobbyists who are actually real fans and kind of get some actual sensible takes about things rather than dealing with the Twitter nutjobs all day.
Sure, no problems. I'm happy to be here.
Love it. Alrighty, so real quick, just gonna welcome a couple people in the chat. Some folks from the community. Reverend Norse, welcome to the stream. Noah, Noir, James Knighton, Philip Soul, Blind Lobster, Napalm Brothers, Havoc, Archimagos Reductor Sethrin, Microwave Enthusiast, Nico40k, Wolfenbach, and Daniel Quick. If I missed anybody, Noble Shield. We're gonna get right into the questions. I have some community questions to get through, but I'm gonna save those for after my questions, because I'm gonna prioritize mine. Alrighty. So I guess I want to like open up the conversation with asking what your initial reaction was to the Femstodes leaks, I should say. Like not even GW's statement, but when you first heard about like the leaks from the Codex.
Mild disbelief at first, until I can actually dig up the sources for it. And then it became pretty clear that, yeah, they decided to just kind of sneak it in there.
Yeah. And I know my reaction was also not only was it disbelief, but it was like staunch because when I first got shared it, it looked like a screen like edit. It looked like somebody had like taken like a screenshot or a picture of a book and done like text over it. At least that's the screenshot I saw, and it was really fuzzy. So I initially just straight up believed it was being trolled, but then I saw a cleaned up image, and then I saw like the actual full breakdown of the page, as well as a couple other people who leaked it, like reviewing the codex, and that's when I covered it in my video, and then of course we got to like the GW statement. So what was your reaction to when GW said there had always been female Custodes?
Well, that was the funniest part, because that meant it wasn't just a retcon. Instead, it was, something more malicious, because now they're actually actively trying to lie to people, rather than simply just saying they changed the law.
There is no war in Ba Sing Se.
Pretty much.
It was eerie too. Like when I read that from like the tweet, I genuinely was shocked. Like I expected them to keep their mouths shut about it, because that's normally like the smart move when you're in big controversy. Like, even if they're gonna like stand by it because they have to for shareholders, right? But the fact that they just brazenly lied, I think knocked everybody off their feet. Like people who were coping about it and people who were like doubting whether this was actually being added or not. That was like a very surreal moment, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's the one that stuck with people, because most of like the meme stuff around this isn't even around the female Custodes part. It's about that response that have always been female Custodes.
Oh, absolutely. So, this is a big question I have, and I know like my experience around it has been interesting, but so far with like the community reaction, like the community around you and like your direct group that you hang out with for like Warhammer, how do you think the community has been handling the debacle for the most part?
Well, I think GW has been counting heads, so to say. Because a lot of people on Twitter have been responding very poorly to it. A lot of people on YouTube have been responding very poorly to it. And those people, they've mostly just blocked. They stopped blocking people after a few hours in because they realized this was not a very good look. But the people they've actually gotten to tread the line is the important ones, because that's Games Workshop looking at who they can count on. Getting Discord moderators, for example, or the lore wiki to change their own stances and start banning people as well. Because that's probably what GW wants. They don't want to be banning people themselves because that gets very obvious. They prefer it if other community moderators ban people for them. And this is kind of where the lie is more powerful than the truth comes in, because everyone can tell the truth because it's the truth. But being willing to knowingly tell the lie is a much more powerful position that GW can force people into.
Oh yeah. So with the lying that they've done thus far, this is something like I think that they're gonna put a stop to, because obviously backlash, the backlash from the initial lie and the initial deception that they've done. I think that right now they're gonna completely pull back due to the backlash, and they're gonna stop talking altogether. Do you think that's gonna be the case, or do you think they're gonna keep going?
I think their only move right now is to shut up about it, especially if the rumors are true and that they're not planning on producing any models for this. Then yes, just disengaging fully is really the only option because there is no defending this position. Not really.
Oh, absolutely not. Like it's been actually quite sobering to see the community be so vitriolic to it, because again, like the initial leak, there was lots of cope, there was lots of defense, but as you said, like that lie, that blatancy that they went for, that should open a lot of people's eyes to the level of egregiousness with this change. So it's been really, I don't know, rough, I guess. That's another like community side of it. I guess I'd ask if you've been dealing with. Have you been dealing with a lot of like blackpilling and doomerism with like a lot of people quitting? Because that's what I've been dealing with like with some of my community.
Well, quitting 40k is a positive move at this point, in my opinion. There's ways to engage with the hobby without engaging with Games Workshop, and that's probably what we need to find because we need to arrive at the same point that fans of comics and fans of Disney have arrived at. Find ways to continue to engage with the core part of the hobby that we do enjoy without engaging with the company side of things. Because JW isn't going to go away from this. Not now, not next year, not the year after. It's going to take 10 years probably before GW becomes even a neutral company again.
Absolutely. So with that, do you think that the best course of action is to, because this has been my approach up to this point, is to switch to 3D printing, but still play like older editions, still talk about the lore, but before this latest change? Do you think that's a better approach, or do you think it's a better approach to quit altogether, sell all your minis, and then start fresh with a new hobby?
Um, Honestly, I'd just say you can continue to play just like normal, even current editions, etc. Um, but get your models from other party sources, either from internet or 3D printing of them, like you said, and then also point out the stuff. Like somebody brings a Custodes army, like, okay, how many of yours are Zinch Custodians?
Oh, have you seen that comic? There was a artist rendition of like it was like a meme comic where like a female Custodes was walking around and like a lord noticed it and was pointing it out, and then everyone was like, "But they've always been there." And he's like, "No, they haven't." Have you seen that comic?
I have. It's a very good comic because it kind of excellently exemplifies what was going on.
Absolutely, it was very entertaining to see that. Um, I guess that leads into my next question. With it's continuing on the community line from other content creators. I've noticed that quite a few of the other 40k content creators, like Bricky, for example, and Major Kill, and a few others, they've also covered this, and Luton09 being a very particular one that I noticed. And I've noticed that with those big heads in the community, there's been either one of two responses. There's either been, this doesn't matter, why do you care? like move on. It's a nothing burger, or it's been like lukewarm, like riding the fence, not really giving a proper opinion. What is
Well, I haven't watched them because I don't watch a whole lot of YouTube these days.
fair enough?
But if it's like it's not a big deal, that is literally just a part of, oh, it's not happening, and then it becomes, oh, but if it was happening, it would be a good thing, and then eventually it becomes, yes, it is happening, that's a good thing. It's they they either don't understand what this means, in which case they're actually retarded because this has been going on for 10 years at this point, or they simply think that it's okay from their perspective. Like their point of view says that this is okay because, well, the left hasn't come for their thing yet.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I think you and I are both on this position where we're staunchly against a change like this, even though there's like all the arguments like for it. We're staunchly against it because we know where it's leading to and where it's going to continue to crumble towards. Even though I would say this is, and I think you'd agree with me that this is already the tipping point of them like going full on woke. Where before
Oh
they
yeah,
were like,
Games Workshop has been a woke company for quite some time. They just
oh yeah,
haven't found a good way in the lore to justify it yet.
yeah. Would you say that this is them like basically just throwing in a towel and saying screw it, we're gonna stop trying to work it in, we're just gonna crumble everything over?
Yes, this is them realizing that there isn't any way to make the property woke. And so, because they still have to follow the commands of wokeism, they're just giving up, throwing up their hands, and just telling the lie.
Yeah. It's again, I can't get over that. Like every time I think about it, like that blatant statement, like there have always been female custodians amongst the original 10,000. Like every time I think about that, it's like I feel like doing a physical double take. Even now, as we're talking about it, we mentioned it several times. Each time, I just still can't believe they said that. It's ridiculous. I guess that also, with that though, with that the backlash that's happened up to this point, the normie crowd, I should say, or another way of put it is Warhammer illiterate crowd, have started to like take note of this change and of the backlash. For example, the Quartering covered it, the Daily Mail covered it, Side Scrollers covered it, as well as I'm not sure if Friday Night Tights covered it yet, but I figure they will at some point. As from Heel versus Babyface, like a bunch of people with either tangential relation to 40k or like none at all, but they cover like the culture war, have started to cover it. So I guess my question for you with that is, will the normie slash Warhammer illiterate crowd make a difference in the struggle for the hobby? And if so, good or bad?
Well, it'll bring more attention to the larger cultural aspect of it, which is what needs to be changed. There is no real point in trying to save the hobby in and of itself because the company's woke.
Yeah.
Like there's no point in trying to hold the company to any standard that it does not wish to be held to. It will simply continue to go its own way until it breaks free, or until it grows so desperate that it simply just lies, which is what we've just now seen. Like, it's the culture war, the wider conflict that needs to be pushed, because that is where the companies will eventually be forced to change their tune, simply because there won't be any customers around for them.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've certainly been happy with, like, and also credit to you, by the way, because I've seen you like going interview to interview, and we kind of talked about this when setting up this interview, is that you've been very popular lately with a lot of people who are, again, I friend in a friendly way, I say Warhammer illiterate. You've been talking to a lot of people on stream and like really informing the the normie crowd of what's going on and giving them a better foothold into understanding and potentially supporting us as we are dealing with this. So I do want to thank you for that. And I guess kind of a more fun question. How has that been? Has it been kind of awkward going to all those interviews and trying to explain to people all this, but in a summarized way?
No, I don't think so. Like, they're interested, they know what's going on, they know the political reasons why this is happening, and they just want to understand then why this is as big a deal as it is, because it is very much so a bit of a deviation from the norm. Because in most cases, they have simply said that they're changing stuff. Like, even in stuff like Star Wars, etc. More often than not, when they change something, they give a rationale for it, and usually a political one. Like the whole Force is female thing, for example, was a pretty obvious flag in Star Wars that, yep, we're gonna embrace the ideology now.
Bend the knee, kiss the ring. Yeah.
And we'll see more and more of that in 40k as well, with not only the if you agree, you're welcome, if not, you won't be missed part, but more blatant as well, where they will actually state that, I don't know, ESG good, DEI good, etc.
Yeah. Actually, that I don't know if you've seen it, and forgive me if you made a video on it and I've just missed it, but there was some recent coverage where I and a couple people went through their annual reports, to like their shareholders and like their public statements of like, their mission statement and everything, and from 2021 to now, they've had a consistent mention of ESG and DEI and diversity and inclusion programs that they've been focusing on in the background. Have you seen that stuff?
Yep, they've had ESG mentions in their reports for quite some time, as you mentioned. Largely, I believe this is the environmental part of it, which, because they're major plastic manufacturer, plastic is not exactly the most environmentally nice thing. So they're just kind of using that as, we're a very nice corporation, we're not polluting, etc. Seems to be the primary focus of it. Though they have also been moving more towards the S and G parts of it too. I don't know if that was from your report, where there were rumors that they were beginning to look into the ethnic diversity of their employees.
Yeah. I think that was from the 2021 to 2022 report, July 2021 to July 2022 report. So that yearly report, I think, did go over that.
Mm-hmm. Because that's where obviously it gets very weird. Like, why do you bother? Why do you care about this?
Yeah. And nothing's more racist than DEI and diversity and inclusion programs, in my opinion, because it's always built around judging people and making, like, as much as they might say like, oh, we're trying not to be biased, but you are making a bias. You're just shifting your bias or what you think you have for a bias to include people not based on their skill set, not by meritocracy, but you don't have enough black people, so we need more black people in the office. You don't have enough Asian people, we need more Asian people in the office. We don't have enough Latino or Muslim people in the office, we need to increase those. We have too many white people, we need to let some go. Like, it's, and I know I'm preaching to the choir when I say this, but it's creepy how they can preach and preach and preach about, oh, we're so diverse, we're so inclusive, we're so loving, we're the side that are for people, and you guys are a bunch of evil, horrible, discriminatory bastards. But y'all are the ones literally spreading like paperwork around your staff to fill out to explain their ethnicity, so you can track it and analyze it.
No, absolutely. It's because when they do it, it's okay. It's positive discrimination, as they would put it. And obviously, it's just as wrong, but they don't care. And the thing is, too, Games Workshop is a woke company. And being a woke company doesn't necessarily mean that they understand any of this. The people at GW are not great moral thinkers, shall we say. So they're simply told, okay, you don't have enough black people. Well, that's discriminatory because they make out so and so much of the British population. Like, why not? And GW doesn't have an answer to that because GW never thought about why they didn't have more black people. They were just hiring people looking for a job. And when they don't have an answer, then of course the activists can go like, "Oh, it's because you're institutionally racist." And they're like, "What the hell does that mean?" And it's because you were built on a system of white supremacy and normalcy, and therefore you're evil. Like, but we don't want to be evil. Okay, well, embrace this then. I am more of my type of people.
Yeah, like the left using that tactic, and they're using it on the community right now in droves. Not that they haven't before, but it's really ramped up. Is using Western sensibilities of people, not wanting to be racist and not wanting to be discriminatory, because that has been a touchy thing in Western culture for years and years. So people wanting to avoid being like labeled those things, I think like them using that as a weapon to force them to acquiesce. Like I guess I'd ask you, as this is not even just like a hobby restricted question, but as people who are pushing back against woke ideology and we're trying to, push back against these people, should we, tactically speaking, because I've seen some people suggest this, and I have my own thoughts about it, but I want to hear yours. Should we just start adopting these labels that they put on us and just saying, yeah, I'm racist, so what? Screw you, just so we rob them of the power of it, or should we continue to just say no, I'm not those things, and then move on and ignore them as they continue to label us it?
Oh, I would simply take a page out of another socialist's playbook, because the best way to fight socialism is socialism. Instead of saying I'm racist, which they will obviously then use against you, because the thing is, at no point are they interested in being honest with you. They will simply see that and recognize it as, oh, that's an admission of guilt. They won't see the humor in it, they won't see the irony in it or anything like that. They'll simply use it as an admission of guilt. What you should do is just, again, adopt the Italian response. Me ne frego. I don't care.
Absolutely, and actually, that's my standpoint as well. Just I don't care. Ignore them. They're throwing feathers at you at hardest.
In essence, it's just like, you have called me a slur. Okay, moving on now.
Exactly. And if anything, I would also suggest people to laugh at it. Like, if you're going to give any reaction at all, laugh at it. Because that tends to be the thing that robs them of the most luster, is when you turn them into a joke. Because Radhom, when he was, like, saying, all black people like Goku because he's a monkey, everyone laughed at him. And that took so much... Like, it made him so salty that he's actually gone after me a little bit on Twitter here and there. Like, he does not like me now because I made fun of him so hard for that.
A Freudian slip, no doubt.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so I also have some questions from the community. My community, I'd like to get to a little bit here. Let's see.
Sure.
So, So from my Discord community, I asked them, hey, I'm going to be interviewing Arch. What's some pressing questions you guys would like to ask? So the first one comes from Reverend Norse, who I believe is still also in the chat. He says, question for both of you. Which side, ours or the woke, do you honestly think the silent majority, players, painters, whales, lorehounds, and all else, who consume but don't talk politics, of the 40k fandom will fall on what side would they fall on in the long run?
I think if they're fans of 40k, they will eventually fall on ours for the simple reason that there's not going to be a 40k if they don't.
Absolutely.
Like, that's the entire thing with the people who keep saying, like, oh, this doesn't matter, it's nothing burglar. It's not going to stop here. Like, it will come for your position eventually. Whatever you like, whatever value you value, it will come for that sooner or later.
Absolutely. That's more or less my stance as well. Yeah, like when it comes to the normie crowd that are at this point, they're gonna have to notice this. This is blowing up way too much. So if they're a real fan, like Arch said, they're going to fall on our side because they're not going to want the hobby to turn into nothing more than a soapbox for left-leaning ideological virtue signaling. No one is not a real fan wants that. They want new lore that actually benefits the universe, that is internally consistent. That's what they want. So they will fall on our side. And the people who are more ideologically driven, like Bricky, for example, and others who are already kind of acquiescing to this, they're just going to accept it and they're going to fall on the other side. So it is going to come down to that. Are you a real fan or are you more ideologically driven?
Yes. Do you put the hobby first or do you put your politics first? Quite simple.
Yep. All right, next question is from Dragonis. Do you think the female Marines are already in planning for the next codex?
Um, I don't know. See, the interesting thing is, whenever GW has done anything like this in the past, right? When GW releases a thing, there's always miniatures attached to it.
Oh yeah.
Because obviously, as they have said multiple times, they are a plastic toy company first and a lore company second. So why then are you deciding to put out a lore change without any models? Where's the hype for this? You made the Custodes Codex. Surely you should be rolling out everything that's new about this right now, right?
Yeah.
What are the sculptures?
I know I theorized, and I think a lot of people have been thinking about it. This like, but that Amazon, because we all know like the diversity, inclusion, and woke stuff has been coming into 40k more and more over the last 5 years. But I think a lot of people, including me, have kind of been thinking like, why did we get this sudden change, like this really big one, all of a sudden, and also in such a minor way where they're not selling any minis or upgrade sprues, they're not really doing any product around it. And I think a lot of people, including myself, have theorized that it's because Amazon also made them do this in relation to their show that they're coming out with Henry Cavill, and they really wanted a female in power armor, and they wanted her to be strong outside of the power armor. So Sister of Battle didn't fit the bill in order to Sister of Silence, even though they are both actually quite physically strong. But regardless, like, would you say that that sounds right, or do you think that that's not the case?
It's possible, but we shouldn't give a GW too much of an out. Like Games Workshop has been wanting to be a woke company for a very long time. They've been trying to go woke, but they've been prevented by their own law. And this latest thing is an act of desperation, where they put it in the codex, they just push it out there, and they just close their eyes and just hunker down. It's like, okay, we're not going to comment on it. We're not gonna make any miniatures. We're just gonna see if we can slide this past for some reason, knowing very well that there was no way. Because it is so weird, again, to release this in a codex and just not mention it at all.
Oh yeah, and even in the codex, it's just a short story. Like it's not even like
Yeah,
it's
I haven't seen anyone suggest that there are actually any like models in the codex either. So again, like they haven't renounced any models. There weren't any models in the codex. It seems to have just been written in there for reasons unbeknownst to anyone.
oh yeah.
Which is also why I do worry a little bit. I don't think this is the case because it's too conspiratorial, but that maybe somebody put it in there without somebody noticing. Like, it sounds too absurd to be true, and I don't think so, but it's like, did somebody just not spell check this? Because GW has not checked their codexes for elemental errors before.
Yeah, that was actually the initial like response from most of the community when it was before GW's statement on Twitter, where there have always been women amongst the 10,000. And
Yeah, so
that
GW probably just fucked up again.
yeah, and that says a lot about GW, by the way. That was the community was genuinely like, okay, it's probably just this as the case. But I would say it's probably not the case personally, because again, they did respond with there've always
They did
been
respond, yes.
yeah, they did defend it. If it was just a clerical error, you think they would use that as just simply saying, okay, hey, calm down, everybody. This was just a clerical error. We'll have a talk with the writer. We'll get it fixed before we publish all these out and we send these out to purchase. So yeah.
My counter would maybe be that they're like, okay, the community team put out the answer before like big leadership even knew what was happening, and now they're furiously debating in a back room somewhere. Like, okay, what the fuck do we do? We've been put in an official position. If we disavow it, we insult the left, and we're trying to not do that. In fact, this is exactly what we want. We just didn't want it right now or in this way. If we just swallow it, we're going to create an enormous amount of controversy, and we're going to get laughed at.
Can you imagine being a fly in the wall right now in GW's internal offices?
Because it also seems like this wasn't really a matter of like high level discussion, because surely somebody and the higher ups would then be like, but if we're a plastic toy company, why aren't we making models around this? And somebody would have to explain to him, like, yeah, but we know this is political subversion, so that'd be difficult.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I get. God, I would kill to be in the offices right now. I would sneak in and just listen to all of them losing their minds. But yeah, to be fair, that is a fair counter to the idea. Is like this is just a huge like big this is just a huge disconnect from the codex writers to the community managers to the marketing team and to the higher ups. So that is fair. I guess we'll see if that ends up being the case. If they do, actually, that is a fun question I'd like to ask. If they were to release an apology, like full blown, like a retraction, like, hey, we're gonna unblock all the accounts that were blocked over this. We deeply apologize for this change. It was an internal mix up. We had a huge miscommunication error. We're gonna fix it. The codex will be rewritten, and our due apologies. If they did that, what would your response be?
Oh, I would use it for everything it's worth politically because that's the conflict we're in now. But I wouldn't buy it because again, GW has been wanting to go work for a very long time. They've been trying to go work for a very long time, and I'm pretty much of the opinion now that if GW wants the work audience, then by all means, let them have it. Let them have the people who call them sexist and racists and bigoted and misogynist and Nazis and fascists. Like, good. You deserve each other.
Yeah, the same relationship Disney is enjoying with Star Wars at the moment with their new fan base.
Yeah. Well, this is your bed now. You chose it. Have fun.
Oh yeah. There's also a couple super chats that came in. I'm just gonna read those off real quick. Tiki the Hut for $10. Thank you so much for the generous support. Much appreciated. Nice. Two of my favorite Warhammer 40k channels, Arch and Asmogan. Y'all are both awesome. Keep up the amazing work. Shameless plug. If Warhammer 40k has you down, come join Conflict 47. Stop your robots, werewolves, etc. Do you know about Conflict 47?
I do. I heard it's kind of cute. The entire idea of World War II, but with fantastical elements: zombies, werewolves, mechs, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about picking up some models for it and just checking it out because it's also apparently in a similar rule set to Bolt Action, and I've never played that either. So, given all this like souring of the well with 40k, I thought maybe taking a break and trying Conflict 47 would be some fun.
Definitely. The problem is that there is no direct competing with 40k in the same way that there's no direct competing with Disney because they've been doing this for 30, 40 years and are sitting on a few $1 billion market cap.
True. Uh, Speaking of, when it comes to like people creating off of this disaster, because I've been working on a tabletop war game in the background, and I know you have. I'm not gonna press you to just like speak about that because I know you keep it pretty hush hush at the moment. But for people like you and I who are trying to develop our own tabletop war game, our own unique settings, with that in mind, that we're going up against Games Workshop, we're going up against effectively all of wargaming because they are the face of it as well as the biggest pillar of it. What would your advice be, I suppose, for like both mentally and also just generally for someone who's just trying to do that?
I think it's the same advice that I give to people that are like, hey, I want to try YouTube. Okay, do it. And then get ready for the fact that it's going to take forever. It's probably going to suck. You're probably not going to get anywhere, etc., etc. So that's just the harsh realities of trying to do anything.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess I would add to that yes, be prepared for failure and prepared not to get anywhere, but also if you do it, don't be so hyper focused on being like immediately successful. Play the long game. Do content and do stuff that you're actually passionate about. And this goes, again, for both YouTube kind of things and also what we're talking about right now with developing a tabletop war game or a video game if you're an indie developer out there. If you're thinking about developing those things, don't be discouraged by initial failures. Consistency
Get used to it.
Yeah, get used to it. Consistency, passion, and working through that disappointment, learning from it especially, that can lead to success in its own right, because a lot of people respect someone who punches through and pushes hard. And also, when you take those failures in mind, you learn from the criticism of it what you screwed up, what you weren't good at, and you can improve on it as you go forward. So I guess I would just add that there.
Embrace failure. It will be your only friend for many years.
All right. For 199 from Gomer081, hashtag Arch was right.
That I was.
Actually, that is a question I was going to ask you a little bit later, but I'll ask you it right now. How does it feel to be so vindicated?
It's just Tuesday for me.
All right. Fair enough. Gomer081 also says, for another 199, who will make the Femmarines, Call or Bile? That's if they justify it. Given this Custodes thing, they may not even justify it.
It cannot be Bile. It has to be Cole, because you cannot have this be associated with evil in any way. It goes against their religious morality.
Call is such a Gary stew.
He is.
I hate him so much. Like, I remember like the Primaris shit and how I felt about him then, and it's only gotten worse. It's only gotten worse. In fact, like a couple of people in regards to this debacle have actual content creators, mind you, not just like randos on Twitter or YouTube. A couple content creators with large followings literally just said, just have Call do it. It sickens me that the community has degraded to that point. Like, GW is a woke company. Them degrading to this point at this point makes sense. But the community to have so little self-respect to the point that we're saying, just have Call do it. That sucks. That sucks. Sergeant Teddy Bear for $5 says, I do believe there is internal struggle inside the companies. We probably have those who oppose the DEI stuff as we do. Wait, what? Did I read that right? I do believe there is internal struggle inside the companies. We probably have those who oppose the DEI stuff as we do. Oh, okay. So he's just saying, like, internally there's also people likely opposing this, as we in the community have people opposing it.
I'm sure there are, but they're not going to have the same clout, and they're not going to have the same political convictions, because this is also where the progressive have the advantage. They have a good 10, 20 years of political indoctrination to lean on. Whereas we're still asking the question, like, okay, when they call us racist, what should be the response? I don't care.
Let's see. Reverend Norse for 200. SEK? Swedish crowns, I think that is.
SEK, yes. Swedish crowns.
Ack. If one... I'm sorry, I'm an American. I only know dollars. If one wants to buy some old used books, lore, or codexes, where might one find them? What do you both recommend? Also, Arch, if you want to keep mum on? I think you said mum on the game all right, but can you tell us of the History Channel at least? What?
The History Channel is going through a period of, do I really want to bother with this now? In essence, where I've been seeing a lot of other History Channels complain about all of their metrics going down because YouTube doesn't really like their stuff. So I'm kind of wondering if I want to put the effort into that or into something else. So I've actually got multiple episodes already edited and created for it. I'm just wondering if it's a worthy long-term investment. I will have some alternative channel coming up in the not too distant future for something else too. As right now I'm looking at 40k and I know there's only so many years left of actual lore in that setting. So I'll have to come up with something. I just don't know what yet.
Oh yeah. Alright. And Shadow Tempest for $5 says, why don't we all band together and buy GW stock and gain majority control similar to that of what happened with GameStop?
Because you would need about $3.9 billion. Which is not a very likely scenario, I'm afraid.
Yeah, even with their stock going down at its moment, it's still, like, I want to say 100 and, last I checked, it was like 133 a share. And
yes,
for frame of reference, BlackRock has 2.6 million, 2.7 million shares.
Oh, yeah.
Like, think about that.
The
133 a share. That's a lot of money.
the market cap of GW is over $3 billion. And at that point, you're going to be buying market cap. So, yes, it's a for something like a controlling share, you are looking at $1 billion, which I don't think there is any real possibility of us mobilizing.
Yeah,
Even
no.
if every fan added in $1, we'd be nowhere.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I don't see that unless there's like some rando 40k whale out there who's on our side that is a secret billionaire and just starts going ham with buying shares. Yeah, I don't see us as a community being able to match up. Like the only way we can tangibly fight this is with our wallets and not by buying stock, but by actively avoiding buying their stuff. Also,
Well, you can
go ahead.
always crash the stock first.
Absolutely. Also, we kind of forgot to answer the first part of Reverend North's questions of where to buy like used books and codexes. Bookstores and eBay are like my go-tos for secondhand 40k stuff. You can also follow them if you have Facebook Marketplace where you live. That's also an option.
Yep. eBay, Etsy. Amazon used to be a decent one, but after a collaboration with GW, they kind of cleaned the marketplace completely clean because of their collaboration.
Oh yeah. A couple more super chats came in. I'm gonna save those for a little bit later because there's a couple of the community questions from the Discord I wanted to get to. Codex 566 says, if the Sisters of Silence were going to have new minis, what would you guys want to see?
Just an expansion on the general range, honestly, because you should make them into an army at that point. Sisters of Silence have just been like a special unit or two. They should be given the full Sisters of Battle treatment, where you turn them into an actual army force.
Yes, thank you. I've been saying this for a couple years. I would love to see them as their own full Codex force, as opposed to just an add-on for Custodes. Like, it would be so cool if you could combine their battle forces. Still, calling back to the fact that they were once in one codex, but that would be such a cool thing. And I thought they should have done that with ninth edition is separate them. Because at the beginning of ninth, that's what I was hoping to be announced. But yet again, no Sisters of Silence, new stuff, and that disappointed me. In 10th edition, I wasn't expecting nothing, and we've gotten worse than nothing. So yeah, but I would have loved to see the Sisters of Silence get expanded on. For me, if I had to think of like a specific model, I kind of want to see, because I was very disappointed with the Sister of Battle, their mech thing, their Dreadnought equivalent, the Power Loader. I was disappointed by that, so I would like to see like the Sisters of Silence get like their not a Dreadnought, but like a mech of their own that isn't a Power Loader ripoff.
Like GW hasn't made a good mech since the Chaos Dreadnought. They unironically haven't. It's been the baby
God, no.
carrier. Or
Fuck the
worse.
baby carrier. I hate it so much. I laugh every time I see that. It just looks so stupid. Yeah, I'd agree that they haven't made a good mix since the Chaos Knights. Good God. Alright. Spiffier Mage asks, why do you have... I am not going to ask that question. Why did... That is stupid. He has another question. Do you know anything about Bailey Gifford, or Bally Gifford, the highest of the shareholders above BlackRock or Vanguard?
I have heard that they might be just as bad, but I haven't looked into them yet, so I don't know much.
I've looked into them a little bit, given everything, and from what I've seen, they're just like BlackRock in regards to being a financial investment firm. They're just based in the UK. I've looked through all of their like actual mission statements on their public page. Nothing is explicitly woke, and they use very bland language, but they don't use words like diversity and inclusion or DEI. They don't use the standard buzzwords on their mission statement page. So if they are woke, it's not as blatant. But then again, that's the furthest I've looked into it so far, is just like their website and just that initial look in. But otherwise, all I know is that they are a financial investment firm like BlackRock. They're pretty big, and they're based in the UK. But very, very much so could potentially be another BlackRock.
Better than the alternative, I suppose, which is just another BlackRock.
Yeah. Litany, the moderate Sith says, "Do you think it is irreversibly damaged? This situation has irreversibly damaged the hobby, or is there still hope to revert this nonsense?"
Well, the hobby is just fine. This won't affect the hobby in any real way because you can just go like, oh yeah, there's these Custodes, which they are. But the company has again gone woke quite some time ago. The company was lost years and years ago, and regaining the company is going to take decades, if that is even a thing that is worth discussing. I mean, at the end of the day, why would we want to save Games Workshop from their own errors?
Absolutely. And that's I can't remember who said it, but the quote, "Don't interrupt your enemy while," I think it was Napoleon, but don't interrupt your enemy while he's making a mistake.
I believe that might have been Napoleon, yes.
Yeah, I think that quotes works perfectly in this circumstance.
Well, simple thing is, like, I don't care about Games Workshop, the multi-now billion-dollar corporation. I don't give a fuck. Like, if they want to burn themselves to the ground, then so be it. I'd just like to keep the hobby. And if people have already managed to separate comics from Marvel and Star Wars from Disney, then I see no reason why we should not be able to do the same.
Agreed. Syl, wonderful Syl, or she's one of my community. She's one of the heads of my community. Love her to death. She says, if the change had been made through several books and introduced as a new development under Gilliman/The Lion, and not quote unquote it has always been there, what would you guys have thought of it then?
Exact same way, because again, the company is woke. It's not the setting, it's the company. So if they introduced it, even if they built it up for a great deal, I would still know the reason why they introduced it.
Yeah. If you, my response is the same. Like as it was, I made a video about all this before GW made their statement on Twitter. So pretty much the same line. I would have reacted just as negatively because whether they built it up in books and up to it, it's still clear the motivation to do it. Like rather than actually do again, this is woke pandering purely because we have so much female representation, to use their word, in the hobby. We have for decades. This hobby in no way has been anti-women, and the community has in no way been anti-women or anything like that. That's a line that's used by a bunch of totally disingenuous and intellectually dishonest assholes. So,
Yes.
but this change specifically to change one of only two all-male factions, where there's so many more that have both men and women, or are just women. Take one of the only two and add women, shoehorning them in for no benefit whatsoever. If anything, it's to the detriment of the Sisters of Silence, because now this means they're going to languish even more with even less support, which is depressing. Yeah, I would have been just as hostile.
It would have been a smarter move from their side because it would have been more difficult to um, criticize. But again, this was forced on them by their wokest ideology, not a organic change.
Yep. Nico 40K says, for both of you, do you think they'll try this with other factions before they try with Space Marines? Like tranny war bosses, misunderstood Norn Queens, BLM Tau, activist Imperial Guard, etc.
Um, I'm sure they'll try some more gender swaps of other factions eventually, just because it'll be easier. Simply because this female Space Marine thing is going to be very contentious. Very contentious. It'll be even more blatant than in this case, and it'll cause even more blatant immediate damage than in this case. So I wouldn't be surprised if they tried something else first. It won't have as much effect either for them or for anybody else, though.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like if they were gonna start doing that stuff, and they kind of already have, I guess, the activist Imperial Guard thing. If I recall correctly, it was an Imperial Guard centric book I read that was newer. It's like only 2 years old. It wasn't full on activist, but it was getting kind of close with some lines in regards to gender in it. So they already kind of were getting close to that. As for, do I think they're gonna, like, go full crazy before Space Marines, like with tranny war bosses and stuff? before this debacle, I would have said, yeah, they were gonna like slowly boil the frog with all that. But after this, I don't know. Like tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow they were like, oh, by the way, Space Marines, yeah, the Gene Seed now works with women. Bye. I
Well, it was because they needed to work themselves up to this point.
yeah
Like it literally is the religious fervor where they've been trying to find a way to do this for a very long time, and eventually they simply just snapped and lied about it. Like that, it took a degree of desperation that it will take a while to build up to again. If it had been more easily accepted, I'm sure they would have pushed it out faster. But with all of the pushback, it will revitalize the anti forces within the company. Because they will now be able to look at this and point to it and go, look, you listen to the community team, nobody liked it, this isn't going to work.
yeah. So let's set up some more super chats. And how much time left do you have, Arch?
Half an hour roundabout.
Oh, okay, so we got a good chunk of time then. All right, so let's set up some more super chats. Noble Shield for $2 says, "I'm more worried about FLGS if we boycott FLGS."
Friendly local game stores, I'm presuming.
Oh, okay. I just usually use
Awesome.
LGS.
They're dead anyway.
Quite a few are.
Harsh truth. They're dead. And GW is not a friend of your friendly local game store. GW is a friend of your GW store. They hate the other ones. And even your GW store, it's not friendly. You can look into the GW handbooks and how GW wants you to behave in the store. They want you to get in, buy your plastic, and get the fuck out again as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's the thing that the left do a lot, isn't it? Like the left constantly, like you see it in video games a lot lately, where like you first start up at like a new quote unquote AAA game that barely works, and they start with like that social community agreement thing. Like Call of Duty does it now, I think. Like where it's like, hey, you have not only do you have to do a terms of service agreement, but you also have to sign off and say, I won't be mean.
Yep, that has also become more popular recently.
Like that's so 1984. It's like
That's infantilization. It's a way to justify their banning policy too, because
yeah.
that way they can say that, oh, you violated our terms of service. What is your terms of service? Oh, well, whatever we want them to be at the time.
You breathed wrong. It was a microaggression. God, we're getting pretty dystopian. But yeah, as for like, there's not where I live. There's like no Warhammer store. There are game stores that have like tables and stuff set up at a weekly basis, and they sell Warhammer stuff. But they're not like Warhammer stores, as in like actually owned by GW. I'm in the U.S., so I think they're a lot less common here in the U.S. I could be mistaken. It could just be my state. But yeah, we just have normal game stores, and my local one I go to all the time. There's games there all the time. We play a lot of there's a lot of 8th, 9th, and 10th edition games at the moment, and for the most part, when it comes to like, I have asked the store owner like, hey, how the sales doing for Warhammer? Like, how much more you guys are requesting from them? My local game store has actually reduced their Warhammer supply a lot. Mainly because like the amount that it's costing them to stock it and how little they're getting back in return. Because in our local area, a lot of people already have full armies, and there's very few new fans starting to come in my local area. And after this, I don't see that hitting an upturn. So, if we continue to boycott, those shops will suffer, and they're already on their way out, as Arch said, in a lot of cases. But in the case of my local game store, that's not a Warhammer store, they won't go under for this. They'll just get rid of their Warhammer stock and just replace it with maybe more D&D minis, or maybe even 3D printing supplies. Like my local store owner, I've told him to do that, and he seems favorable to the idea. It's kind of ironic. But Yeah, thank you for the $2, Noble Shield. Leonard Church for 499 says GW said everything is canon, so God Emperor 45th President is canon. Let's see if lore suddenly matters. So God Emperor 45th President is canon. Okay.
You got Emperor Trump. I mean, yeah, it's a stupid position. Everything is canon. Okay, so nothing matters. Your entire universe is built on sand. Like it's an obvious cope in essence, where they're just like, yes, we don't care anymore.
Yeah, I hate that take, and it's also why I stopped watching Luton years ago, like Luton Onan, because he said that in one of his earliest videos is like, hey, uh, canon in 40k is not really a thing. He said that years
Of
ago.
course it is. Like yeah, canon is a thing in every setting.
It is like you can't have a setting without canon. You can definitely make the argument with 40k that it has a soft canon in the sense that the specific details are varying and are a little inconsistent here and there. But the broad lore, absolutely not. It's consistent as hell. It's been consistent for decades. Like
Hmm.
it's so disingenuous, dishonest, and intellectually insulting to say that to people. It's very annoying. Let's see. Dr. Doomer for £5 says, I love being explained how I need to create safe and inclusive spaces for women by weirdos with timelines full of muscle mommy. Ugh. Have you
I
been?
do also enjoy the whole muscle mummy things. Like,
I
that's such a Coomer-esque take. Like, okay, why do you like this? Well, because muscle mummy. Okay, but that's not a reason other than oh, well, I masturbate to this. Like, okay, fair, but I don't see how that is an argument why it should be in my fucking law.
it's like, yeah, cool. You have a fetish. Fine. Cool. Why? Why does this have to infest it?
Well, it's safe horny. That's what it is, because it allows you to be edgy, and you're like, oh, fetish. That's a little edgy, right? I like that. And it's also safe because it's progressive accepted. So you get to kind of try to be edgy, whilst also making sure that you don't actually annoy the people who might actually try to cancel you. It's a very weak and pathetic middle of the road take, and I don't really respect these people.
I do not either. I mean, the left recently tried to defend Vosh with his horse lolly shit, so
Oh yeah, and then that's because the progressive is a professional hypocrite animal, and simple it is. My side good, your side bad, and no matter what they will need to defend to justify that, they will. Lolly horse porn, okay, well, that'll just be another thing to defend now for them.
oh yeah. How long till they start like pushing the map thing again?
Oh, just when they run out of other things to push. Like that is by definition their ideology is to undermine everything that is considered normal in our society. So pedophilia will eventually be on the list of things where that they will try to push.
That's a chill up my spine. All right, Lord Middleman for £2 says, "Remember, lads, GW has always supported 3D printing.
They do. We should abide by their interest in 3D printing finally.
They are the greatest marketing for 3D printing. They are a walking advertisement for it." Codier for $2 Canadian, I think. CA dollar. $2 says, "This debacle already killed the Amazon show, Dead on Arrival." Actually, that leads to a question I have. How do you think Henry Cavill is going to respond to this? If he at all.
I don't think he's gonna respond.
Yeah, I agree.
Like part of me wants to say that the patron saint of geeks would threaten to walk over this, but it's an Amazon paycheck. Like I'm not sure I would threaten to walk for an Amazon paycheck. Like, have you any idea how many hundreds of thousands, if not millions, they're offering him for this? It's like principles is all well and good, but every single person I firmly believe has a point at which principles give way to money. And Amazon, the biggest corporation in the fucking world, it might be that point.
Yeah, that's fair. That's been my take as well, that he probably won't respond. I will say this, at least I hope, and I don't think Henry Cavill will come out and side with them.
Oh, I'd be very surprised if he sided with
Oh
this.
yeah, that would be not only a death knell for the show, that would be a death knell for Cavill in terms of his reputation. Like, done. So,
Cavill has always presented himself as the fan guy. I
yep.
cannot imagine that he would take a side on such a contentious subject as that. That'd be
Yeah, I don't see it
weird and
either.
silly.
It just would like it would not make sense for him to do at all. I don't like, but I do think he will stay silent, and I agree. I don't think he's gonna walk. The most we can hope for Henry Cavill like responding is something like of a pseudo response. Like he might put up like a public post just sharing some minis, and he might say, "I love my boys in gold" or something like that. Something subtle that he can write off if confronted. But
Possibly, but again, it's Amazon and GW. Like
yeah,
he's not gonna want to do anything to rock this boat. I don't think.
yeah, and that's just me being hopeful. Zlaxon Doppelgangers for $2 says the woke must be purged. I agree. Alright, Captain Caboose for $10 says, great, we get the cyberpunk hellscape without the cool tech and guns. Meh, when is it time to let go? Let them have it in our own shit?
Well, again, like I think there's no point in protecting the corporation anymore.
Oh,
Like there was the instinctual reaction for a long time to see an article going like GW is racist and sexist, and go like, no, they're not. Oh, what the fuck? But why? Why even give them that? Why not be like, yeah, it's racist and sexist? No, actually, it's terrible. Why would you? Why do you want to be a part of this? It's awful. Please stay away.
Oh, yeah. Like, I personally, this is just my mentality. I'm not letting it go. I will not buy GW products. I'm boycotting buying any of their stuff, but I am not giving in to the point that I'm gonna stop playing at shops. I'm to the point where I stop talking lore. I'm still gonna cover that stuff because I still love it, but yeah, I see it as a form of surrender to literally throw up your hands and say like I give up. Like you take it. It's fine if you quit the hobby over it. I get it. Like this is if anything it's a good thing because at least as long as you're not supporting them. But I think if you are passionate about Warhammer, you need to talk about this. And you can't let them kick you out of shops. You can't you let them do that, they do win. And that's a surrender. That's my mentality about it though.
Yep, it's tightly understandable.
Ball for £5 per sterling or pound sterling. I keep saying that pounds per sterling. I think it's just pound sterling. Is GW burning yet? I want to see the fire. Hi Asmo and Arch. Hello.
Well, they're not doing great. The announcement was not the success they had perhaps hoped or coped themselves into thinking that it would be. I would not be surprised, again, because if they were really confident about this, they would still be talking about it or doing something. The fact that they're not indicates to me that there's probably some heated discussions going on in back rooms and places as they try to figure out what's next.
Yeah. Right now I have a prediction, but I'm probably going to be wrong. I think they are going to release a half-assed apology, but only for the blatant or the bluntness of the tweet. I don't think they're going to apologize for the move. That's my current prediction.
It would be a very weak move. If they do that, it will be them admitting that this was a gaslighting attempt, in essence.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be dumb tactically. It'd be very stupid for them. We'll see. I hope they're that stupid, though.
I am got my fingers crossed they're that stupid. Scarberus Wretch for $1? That's for $5, but $1. That's not Australian. Australian is like AUD. Well, for $5 says, I've been told repeatedly that this will get legions of women to play 40k. Oh, fuck that. Since
Yeah, I've been told this too. Doesn't seem to be working.
It's such a lie. It's such a lie.
I was on Flashcast the other day with Anna, or that's how was going. She goes by online, and She said exactly what I was going to say moments earlier. The best way to get women into 40k is not female miniatures. It's Henry Cavill with not a whole lot of clothes on.
Yes, that's true, and I even made a comment about that in one of my own videos about this. Is that women aren't attracted to Henry Cavill because he's a nerd and playing the geek role? It's because he's
Yeah,
hot.
no. Yes.
So
They couldn't care less. If
yeah,
he was into competitive pottery, that's what they would be interested in.
there'd be a huge slew of people going to check out pottery. And here's the thing, like the people who are making this argument, like oh, adding female custodians or female space marines, that's going to bring women in. The women that are in the hobby now, and quote, to huge shout out to a great member of the community, Lady Runesong. She's awesome, love her to death, and she made this point. Most of the women that are in the hobby right now play Xenos races, like orcs and Tyranids. Like most
Oh
of the
yeah.
women I've met play orcs and Tyranids. They're not. That's and again, that's a huge slap in the face of the whole representation narrative. Like, no,
Well,
it's a
again,
lie.
if having female models and female armies would bring in hordes of female gamers, then they would have been here since 1997 when the Citizens of Battle Codex released. It's
Absolutely.
obviously not the case.
Yeah, it's just intellectually dishonest. And to everybody watching, if someone says that to you, just tell them to fuck off. Like that's pure tourist and it's pure lie. Like that's all that is.
I'll just literally ask them why they didn't arrive in 1997 and see if they get the reference.
That too. Actually, no, that's probably a better response. I would just say fuck you though. I hate
It's like,
those
wait,
people.
you hold on, you don't know what happened in 1997? It's the Sisters of Battle Codex, you tourist. The old female army. What the fuck's wrong with you?
I miss that old John Blanche artwork. That was John Blanche for the original cover of the 1997 Codex, wasn't it?
Yep, it was it also speaks volumes that that picture of the Sisters of Battle standing atop the flaming skull is like one of the most popular artworks in 40k.
It's so awesome. It's pure grimdark cheese. I love it.
Yep, I love the fat little preachers in the background that just look angry with a mace too. It's like, "Arr, I'm gonna get you.
Love it.
My
Oh,
fucking walking stick."
that if you guys want the best artwork for 40k that truly encapsulates it, at least for me, is John Blanche's artwork. Like he really captured the tone with his art. So, oh, that was such a great. I still love that art piece. Uh, Niga Productions. I wasn't gonna say that the first way I was gonna say it. $2 says made a short video on fem studies. Insane retcon, in my opinion. Yes, this has been, and it's also creepy how they've done it. Like we've already talked about it ad nauseum, but their statement of just there is no war in Bossing say we've always been at war with East Asia. There's always been female custodies. It's eerie, the revisionism.
Mhm.
Tangular for 20 Bulgarian. I don't know what the BGN. 20 Bulgarian currency. One question that would help us gatekeep our communities during this nonsense is having an exclusively male faction a bad thing? And if the answer is anything but a hard no, well, we use the boot.
Well, yeah. Well, you can go further. Is exclusivity bad? Because exclusivity is, of course, not bad. All things that are worth striving for are exclusive. A good job is exclusive. A good education is exclusive. A successful career is exclusive.
A good house.
Marriage is exclusive.
Oh yeah,
Everything is exclusive. You are not given any of this shit.
absolutely. And that's 100% true. Like it's a constant thing like brought up with like making or lowering standards and not to go down this road too long, but like in regards to the military right now in the United States, our military is actively reducing standards so women can meet them to join specific military segments like the Marines and the Navy SEALs. They're actively lowering standards because they can't match the male ones. So that,
Oh yeah,
in my
they've been
opinion,
doing this for ages in all kinds of militaries.
oh yeah,
Same thing in Norway too, where the requirements for female officers is 1 pull-up. For men, it's 3.
It's just how can you feel accomplished knowing that you were given a handicap? Like that exclusivity of like what made it so epic to achieve those titles. It's like the left's idea of this stuff is it's comical. It's antithetical to how people are.
Who needs achievements when you can get Gibbs?
Yep. All right. I have a couple more community questions here, and then I have like one question from me. I'm gonna end off on. The Nameless Scholar says, "Would you support another email campaign just like the one you did during the Warhammer is for Everyone but debacle?"
I don't think it will result in anything because GW is already in bunker mode as it is right now, and they already learned from that one that the only response is to shut off their email service, which is what they did.
Yep, I remember that. That was a while ago now. Was it?
Yep.
2-3
And
years ago?
again, that was in an effort to try and get the company to do something. And if the company is irreversibly woke, as it does appear to be, then going for the company is pointless.
Yep. Havoc1137 says, depending on this contract, should Henry Cavill publicly dump the Amazon show, or should he try to use what authority he has in the script writing to push back against GW? Let's assume, for sake of hypothetical, that he had absolute control of the project.
Like, it would be nice to think that he'd like walk over this, that he'd take it that seriously, but again, it's so much money. It's so much like career making clout as well that I don't think it's reasonable to expect him to do something like that.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like he has principles, no doubt, but Arch kind of said it earlier. At some point, like you do give way to your principles to financials. And I've been, in my case, like I've been beneficial in that I've not been faced with that decision, so I can confidently say like I'm not going to be swayed as I currently stand on things. But Amazon money, like that's a lot. That's going to pay for a large future. If he's trying to start a family, that's going to set him and his family up for life if they are smart with money. Like, that's a huge thing to face down. So, yeah.
Yes. Principles are easy to have when you're not giving up $1 million odd or so to have them.
Yeah. I can't judge someone who is faced with that decision. I've never been in it, and in some ways, I hope I'm never in that kind of position. But yeah, Rebellious Red, for both of you, what would be the best course correction that Games Workshop could do at this point with this debacle they brought upon themselves? Could they redeem themselves in the eyes of the community, or has GW ran out of chances to win back their core audience?
Again, GW is already a woke corporation. I don't see any point in winning them back, and what will be done to win them back is not to win GW back. It is to continue to push the broader cultural context of all of this and to win the larger culture war. Once eventually the right becomes ascendance fully, which is there, they already are on the way, then this will become naturally untenable just by cultural proxy. This is a much more effective way of fighting because you're not fighting a corporation or a system. You are fighting the entire ideology and the entire political ideas behind it.
I agree. Yeah, I don't see them, like, I would say for the majority of the community, there's nothing they could do to fix this actively. Like, I genuinely believe that. I even think the people who are going to excuse it and everything, I think in their genuine heart of hearts aren't going to forget this. I guess it comes down to, are we talking the true fans, or are we talking people who pretend to be? People who pretend to be, they're already on their side. And for the true fans like us, we're too stung by this. I don't think people are going to forget this. It's going to be just like the Warhammer Fantasy Battles being discontinued in favor of Age of Sigmar. Like, the community will not forget this. This shows that they're corrupt. So even if they're not going to do it, but even if they mythologically just came out on Twitter, fired every single person in their community management team and their marketing team, started fresh, proved they did all of it, it doesn't change who their shareholders are. It doesn't change the ideology that is already infested people who are still there in spite of those groups. Yeah, like they might make a show of placation, but they're not gonna stop. Like, this is gonna continue.
Yeah, they have no reason to do any of this either.
Yeah. Again, that's like the most optimistic scenario in Fantasyland. They're not gonna do that. All right, and this is from Kiro. I don't know if anyone's asked this question, but this is for the both of you. What got you to first into Warhammer? And if you could, would you change fate and never have found out about Warhammer as a consequence of this?
Oh, definitely not. I'd always like to be into 40k.
Oh,
40k was always cool.
Yep, I agree.
And in my case, it was my grandmother picking up a Chaos Dwarf Codex, not having the faintest clue what it was, but thinking it looked pretty.
In my case, it was my friend Dan. I was 13 years old. We were both hanging out in the cafeteria at my high school. And I was telling him about how I knew about I had experienced like every sci-fi setting, and that I'd run out of new ones to get into. He's like, "Oh, Stargate, yeah. What about Firefly? Yeah. What about Star Trek? Yeah. Star Wars, etc., etc., etc." We went down the whole line. He was surprised I even was into Battlestar Galactica, but finally he said 40k. I said, "What?" And he had a hold my beer moment. Invited me to his house that evening, and I went down to his basement to find out his dad and him were hardcore 40k fans. They were huge orc collectors, and make a long story short, the rest is history. I became a hardcore fan after that. Been a fan ever since.
Very cool.
Yeah, so given that, and given all the good memories I've had, the amazing people I've gotten to meet, the number of tournaments I've gone to, the fun experiences, just hanging, talking minis at shops, and hanging out with people online and talking about 40k. Yeah, no, I'd never, ever take this back. All right, so that's all the community questions I had on the Discord. There's a couple of super chats. Maybe pick some out here. From Sniper Wolf says, for $2, this didn't incite a Bud Light response. What will?
Well, it'll be female Space Marines. Because the reason why they picked Custodes was because they knew the Custodes were a bit more fringe. And the fact that a lot of people already kind of hate them because they are a gay goddamn list. It's like, oh, hey, we're the elite Space Marine. It's like, how do you play? Well, you basically can't kill us. Like, oh, good.
Yeah.
They're an annoying army list, and I hate them tremendously.
Can't blame you. Warhammer, I'm an orc player primarily, so. Warhammer literally taught me, and this is from Geronimo. Geronimo, it cuts off per or something. Thank you for the super chat. IDR 50,000? I did not know that currency. But Warhammer literally taught me English back when I was in elementary school. Seeing how far the IP went, it feels soul-crushing now.
Yep, I can see it.
Yeah. I mean, again, I can't blame people for being too doomerish about this. That's why, like, whenever, people in my own community have been like, hey, yeah, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I can't watch another hobby die. I just sit there and go, yeah, I get it. I really do get it. But like I said, I'm sticking around. They're not going to kick me out, and I'm gonna stand my ground, even if I'm the last one standing, telling them all to go fuck themselves. I'm stubborn. Sergeant Teddy Bear 59 says, for $5, if we do want to fight, it will have to adopt multiple methods. The community pushing back in different ways altogether. Honestly, the best way is the main way. I think everyone should. I mean, that's all well and good. You can send emails, you can send letters, you can do plenty of things. That's true, But really, the only effective method that'll actually get them to listen is boycott.
Yep. Stop buying their stuff and work towards, again, changing the wider culture.
Yep. That actually kind of calls back to our talk. I talk about Henry Cavill and not blaming him for keeping quiet about all this, even if he is pissed, because money talks, but it talks both ways. It can buy your principles, and it can cost you your principles. So,
Absolutely.
if they get hit hard enough in the stocks and in their profits, they will abandon their supposed principles. They will abandon them. So it goes both ways. Sujad for €2 says GW are using a lot of bots to fake support.
I have seen allegations, but it's always very difficult to prove bots and the number of bots because the bots have gotten very clever and people have used AI now to replicate bots.
Oh yeah, like I could definitely tell some things I've seen in response to this have been kind of bottish in terms of like the consistency. The wording feels very human, but the consistency of certain responses to specific posts.
I consider anyone who uses 1 out of 2 responses an NPC. Either A, this doesn't matter, okay. You know why this matters, or if you don't, you've been asleep for 10 years.
If you didn't matter, why are you commenting?
Yep, you're an NPC. Or B, I just like muscle mummies. Okay, NPC number 2.
Yep. I've seen, the sad thing is I've seen more of the muscle mommy argument than I've seen of the doesn't matter argument. I've seen the doesn't matter argument, but it's been more the muscle mommy thing.
Again, it's safe horny. It's an opportunity for people to try to be edgy whilst also not being edgy in any way that can actually piss anybody off.
It's so weird to me. Maybe I'm old school in this regard and take it from where it comes. I'm a younger guy. But when did people get so comfortable like sharing their fetishes everywhere? Like even if it's safe horny, quote unquote, of like dommy mummies and stuff. I feel like that's all well and good in like a private talk with like your close friends, especially if you're willing to joke about it. But like posting on like Twitter and Facebook and even on YouTube and videos and stuff. Maybe I'm old school, but isn't that just weird?
Well, it's because it's one of the few remaining ways to be edgy. Because being edgy on the internet was always a good way to get clout and grow.
True.
But what was acceptable as edgy has decreased enormously to the point where now fetishization is one of the few things you can still be edgy about, and that is, of course, because the left is huge fans of fetishization. That's why they clapped when Baldur's Gate 3 had a bare sex scene, and why they boo when Stellar Blade comes out, because it is their fetish good, your fetish bad.
Yeah.
As with everything else.
All right. Yeah, I guess, but like, it creeps me out. But I guess we'll end off with this question, and we kind of answered it a little bit, but I'm gonna ask in a more direct way. Arch, what is it that you suggest to everybody in the community to do? And again, you pretty much answered this, but I guess we'll end off on you answer it one more time. What do you suggest the True 40K fans to do to stand in opposition to this farce? Any tips or advice you may offer?
Find alternative ways to enjoy the hobby. Buying 3D printed models, 3D printing your own if you have the technical skills to do so, and continue to engage with the wider cultural aspects of it, because that's what needs to change. And whenever you meet somebody in the games workshop store or whatever that says, this representation, diversity, etc., I don't care, is the correct response. It ruins the law.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on, Arch, and taking the time to come on and answer my questions and some of the community's questions. God knows we all greatly appreciate you, especially since, again, you've been going around and explaining this to the normie crowd that have been hearing about it and lending a voice to the debate. I greatly appreciate it, man. It means a lot.
You're very welcome. It was fun being on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. All right. That's gonna be it for the Arch interview. I'm gonna stay on a little bit longer to answer some more community questions, just like general ones in the chat, and then I'm gonna finish up. But again, thank you, Arch, for being on, and I cannot wait to see your future content. Before you go, everyone here knows you, but all the same, where can people find you?
The Archcast on YouTube is the best place.
Absolutely. Great content over there, by the way. You recently did an interview and a talk with Sargon and Short Fat Otaku, I think.
Yep.
It's a great conversation if you guys want to listen into it. It's very, very good. But yeah, that's gonna be it for the interview. See you later, Arch.
See ya.
All right. Like I said, I'm just gonna skim through the chat a little bit, answer some last remaining questions you guys might have, and then I'm gonna wrap up myself and I need to get lunch. So, how's everybody feeling? Also, make sure you guys are leaving a like to support the stream. Greatly appreciate it. Also, I'm gonna link Arch's channel and everything in the chat. And I'm also gonna do it in the description. I forgot to do that. All right, obviously, I'm gonna first link in the chat. And again, I know you guys know him, but regardless, that's for Arch's 40K channel. And of course, the Archcast, the big one. I'm going to share right here. Boom. All right, just skim a chat. Preed Kips. Dang it, I should have pointed that out. Thanks for the talk with the both of you, Arch and Asmogan. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Arch and Asmogan. Adam Wolfer for $2 says Arch was on Midnight's Edge channel too. Yes, he was. Make sure, yeah, the side scrollers interview with Arch as well. I highly recommend checking that one out. It's really, really good. What, I forgot to hang up from the call. My bad. Dan Abnett is a huge source for the push for the idea that the Emperor is gender queer in the first. Oh, fuck off. Dan Abnett, ADB, they're all woke, like extremely woke. It's been apparent in their writing for the last few years. I would make the argument, and some people would argue with me, but I would make the argument that their earlier books in the series, like back in the early 2000s, they were devoid of like the worst of their ideology. Absolutely, like they've always been left leaning. You can tell, but I would make the argument that their writings from way back then are nowhere near as bad as what they've become. Especially if you've read the End and the Death Volume 3, with the Emperor being like shanking Horus with a shiv. That was just bullshit. Nietzsche Nevermore, support as a gun? Yes, absolutely. Support me. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. As a gun, local third-party LGS are who I worry about the most. If patrons of stores are not buying GW products, they should still buy other products at the store so the LGS survive the boycott. I would agree. And if they're not Warhammer stores, they will have non-GW products. So, like my LGS, for example, they have D&D products. They have D&D minis you can pick up that are pre-primed, and they're extremely cheap. Like, each one's like $5.99, $6.99, $7.99, and like the most expensive. Unless you get like the big dragon one, that's like $80. But yeah, like I would agree. Like at your local LGS stores, boycott GW products through and through, because that's the only way the GW is going to learn. But the main thing we as a community need to do to support our LGSs, if you want to support them, if you don't like your LGS, then this is pretty easy to do all around. But you do need to find other products that they might produce. Like, again, my local store, they also sell old video games. They sell, they do phone repairs. Like, they do a bunch of other stuff other than Warhammer. So if Warhammer does go under, they have a lot of other sources of income. I'm going to be honest, leaving isn't the way. I would agree. I would again, my stance is to stay. I'm not leaving 40K. I'm not going to stop making 40K content. It might slow down for a little bit because, I'm not as passionate about it at the moment. But, I'm not going to stop. And I don't think anybody should. I think if you love 40K and if you have good memories attached to this, you shouldn't walk away. That's just something I don't agree with. But do I think you are bad if you leave? Do I think you're wrong to do so? No. For you as a personal thing. For the sake of the hobby, I do think it is bad. Ball for £5, man. Thank you. My way of thinking is no more gatekeeping or anything. Just drop GW out of 40K, play older editions, and have fun. Yeah, and that's my take as well. I do think you should still gatekeep that aspect of it. Like when people are trying to get into 40K, do still try and filter the new people in. Try and encourage them to check out the old stuff. Encourage them not to buy GW products. Say, hey, 3D printing. If you have a 3D printer, offer to 3D print them stuff. Try and help new people steer towards true 40K. Don't let them languish in the bullshit that's now there, that it's becoming. Like, don't let them fall to darkness if you can avoid it. Nostalgia Vivek, how you doing, man? Welcome for £5. If Valric sources are right that Femstodes model is coming in summer, what does this mean for the rumors we have already seen? If the Femstodes model is coming in summer, then that means that they definitely prematurely release this response. If they, it just feels so strange in regards to that though. Like, why would you, leak or allow this to be reviewed by people to be leaked with this Femstodes mention, but then not already have a model ready to go immediately? Like, you'd want them very close together. If we're not getting a Femstodes model till summer, then all of this was incredibly stupid. But even with that happening, that model's not going to sell. Like, obviously the few Wokos that have money are going to really hold that up as a victory thing. They're really going to be like, yeah, money. Like, hey, look, I bought one. Yeah, but the vast majority of them are just going to pretend they bought one or say they bought one or even steal someone else's photo of having bought one. But the actual sales are going to be terrible. Nobody's going to want to bother with it. So if anything, I'm actually hoping that's true, that they are coming out with a Femstodes model, just so it fails to sell so badly. Sujad for €5. These codexes would have been worked on months in advance. The leaks about Amazon is unlikely because of this. It does mean it's unlikely, but it's not entirely out of the running still. Asmogan, these decisions were made 1 to 3 years ago. That is how far ahead the studios works on games/miniatures. I am aware. The thing is, if it was only a year to 2 years ago, the Amazon thing can still apply, because that's about how long the discussions have been being had around Amazon, and the negotiations have been happening the entire time during that. And it is just a short story, keep in mind. There's no new models in the codex that are female. There's no other blurbs about it. So at any point in that 1 to 3 year period while they were developing the codex and developing everything, during that time, at any point, someone could have just written up that short story and thrown it in. So unless we can nail down when the short story was written, and if this model ends up being true, when the model was designed, we can then correlate that with the negotiations with Amazon and say whether or not that was what caused it, or if this was just one big move that they were planning on making all along. We'd have to actually see those details. Again, well, we don't know everything, so we can't say with anything for definitives. My leaning is towards Amazon. I still think Amazon was the push for this move. I still think that, and I'm gonna probably still think that for a while longer. But again, we'll see. We need more concrete information in either case. Paris for the $5. Thank you so much, man. I think YouTube content is like it. I think YouTube content is like and would be fun to see is highlighted fan stuff, homebrews, fanfics, narratives. Obviously, ones that are good quality, of course. Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say in light of this GW stuff, it's not like we're going to be very hyped around new releases for 40K or Age of Sigmar. I think a lot of people are very soured by this. So yeah, I think for content creators and myself included, more highlights on fan created content would certainly start to be more preferable at the moment, I'd argue. Ball says, Azagon, did you not think maybe Horus shows this happening by the Chaos Gods, and that's why we have the Horsehairs? If this is if all this is what they showed him, I can't blame Horus. I'm on his side now. I'd have to say, can't blame him. Azagon, you want to do old game mods? Old game mods. Can you specify? Like, are you talking like mods for like Dawn of War, or are you talking like previous editions of the tabletop? Like when I hear mod, I think like video games. So I'm not sure if you're meaning like tabletop though. Fan created stuff is surfacing again slowly. True. A lot of people are looking for their sources of passion and interest elsewhere, and they can't get it from GW, so get it from fans. To be honest, that's kind of been the case for decades, though. I mean, after all, what was like the biggest push for 40K, like being spread around just a few years ago? It was Astartes. Like a fan-created fan animation got people erupting in passion and interest. Before the Astartes animation, 40K was languishing. Not to say it's not languishing now. It absolutely is not now, but they were on the uptick for a while after that. Like, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the animation done by Sayama Peterson single-handedly revived 40K in a way nothing else did before it. And I mean nothing else. Not even TTS, as much as people are passionate about that. Judge Cohen says, my belief is that this is an effect of the hiring of their ESG exec in 21/22, or through 22. As per the annual report, Amazon is just core? Is just core. Or core? Do you mean to say corrupt? Or is... Am I an idiot? Does core mean something? But yeah, Amazon is just... Okay, I think I understand. Again, like, I'm getting caught on that word too much. Adam Wolford, thank you for $10, man. That short story could have been with male... but changed to female. It wouldn't take that much. Yeah, it's just a matter of changing the pronouns. That's true. Well, changing the pronouns and switching out lady for lord. Because that's like the core words that kept the gender in there. Also, waiting for Lancer RPG to come out. It's Mech RPG tabletop. Okay. Name of Scholar says, hot take, text-to-speech was the critical role of 40K. Ooh, that's going to start a war. I'm gonna plead the fifth on my opinion with that. All I'll say is I liked TTS the first like 3 episodes. Not so much after that. Didn't hate it, but lost me after the first bit. But I might start a war in the comments. Just going Azagon, just more pressure. I mistyped. Oh, okay. True. Amazon, regardless of everything, is just more pressure. It is just a matter of was this a product of just that little bit more pressure, or was this a product coming on along and Amazon was just pressuring them to continue doing it regardless? Again, I'd like to see more detailed information in regards to it. I can't disagree with you guys, but I can't agree with you either. Like, it's one of those things where we don't have the exact information to nail down, like, hey, this is definitively it was this and it wasn't this. I still think Amazon had a part in the Femme Custodes edition. It's just a matter of how much. But I'm not saying you're wrong. Again, I don't know you're wrong. Adam Wolfer for $10, man. Thank you. That short story... Oh, I'm sorry. I almost read it again. I scrolled back down. You almost got your super chat read twice. But, yeah. Follow the money. Yeah, I'll always follow the money. Like with everything that just seems dubious, follow the money. Like without a doubt, you will find something shady. Here's a question I have for you guys. How did you guys like the interview? How did it go? Good, good. Loved it. Really enjoyed it. Oh, Pierce just gotta head out. Have a good one, man. Relation. I got into 40k by watching lore created by the fans. Fair enough, Finn. More. Good. Yay. Loved it. You're no Tim Pool, but it's okay. I don't know how to take that. Wait, are you saying Tim Pool's, a good interviewer? Might be a hot take. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think he's a bad one, but I don't know. Besides the fact I wouldn't want to be Tim Pool. I wouldn't want to be either. I wouldn't want to be Tim Pool. Tim Civil War takes aside Pool. Wheeze. Like, again, I don't know. Like, again, I don't hate the man. I don't know the man, but I second not wanting to be Tim Pool. I quadruple. I don't even know if Tim wants to be Tim these days. The interview was awesome. Love to hear it. Team 1 billion. Thank you. Archie's a chill dude, so it was very nice to hear y'all's takes. Yeah, every time I've talked with Arch, this isn't my first time interviewing him. But every time I've talked with Arch, it's been a great experience. Like, talking to him is fun. Like, he's a cool dude. He's very chill, very relaxed. I certainly hope I did better this time than, like, the last time we talked. In terms of, like, an interview, anyway. I don't know. I could be a bit of a dork. So. Okay, his a fence post up his ass. Tim Pool. I haven't watched his stuff in a long time, to be fair, so I cannot say if I agree with that or not. At one time, I definitely agreed with that statement, though. Lady Rune Song, thanks for the shout out as well. No problem. I mean, you deserve it. Like, you've been a great voice in the community, Lady Rune Song. Like, talking to you about this stuff is very refreshing, because it's it helps remind us that the people we're talking with 99% of the time, like on Twitter and stuff, that are constantly saying, "Oh, we're doing this for women and representation and stuff." Like, your voice really helps remind us that that's not true. Like what they're doing, and we already know it, but sometimes you can kind of lose track of it when you're just talking to these psychos all the time. But having like an actual voice say to you, like, "Hey, no, that's not what that doesn't represent me. That isn't what I think." It feels vindicating and it feels nice. And also, you're a really intelligent person. Every time I've talked to you on the open mic, it's been extremely good. So, yeah, you deserve it, 100%. Oh, for Asmogan, yes, we should get you a beanie. I would not look good with a beanie. Trust me, I don't look good with a baseball cap. Plus, my luscious hair might be flattened by such evil. His glorious mane could be damaged. He's become less of a fence poster. Tim Pool? I'll take your word for it. Again, I kind of felt... I might check out his stuff. I don't know what he's been covering lately, to be honest. But I stopped watching Tim like 2-3 years ago. Fallout show should have been about the courier and his warband destroying the NCR. That would have been more interesting than what we got. I won't spoil it, but me and some of my community buds, we've been actually doing a EFAP style breakdown. We've recorded our reaction to 2 episodes so far. I just got to finish editing them. But yeah, if you guys are interested in like my take and a couple of my friends' takes on Fallout, we're coming out with that. I'll give you guys this much. I hate it so far. We're 2 episodes in, and I've been avoiding spoilers for every other episode. But as it is right now, I cannot believe the Critical Drinker likes that show. I cannot believe half the people I normally respect, or at the very least can understand their opinions, have been saying that they like this show. I do not fucking get it. Like, I don't fucking get it. Why you do this to yourself, Asmo? I don't know. I'm a masochist, I guess. God damn it. No fedoras, please. I don't own a fedora. I used to own a fedora when I was in high school. Weirdly enough. But we were all cringed when we were in high school, I think. Joshua Martin, I like Mahler's take on Fallout. I haven't seen his. Again, I've been enjoying watching it with my friends. And not because the show is good. I've been enjoying because ripping it apart is so much fun. But I've also been enjoying like seeing the discourse. For what of it I've been able to see without spoilers. It's been interesting. But he hates it. Okay, then I side with him then. The show sucks. I think the main thing that'll differ between people liking the show and not is whether they're a New Vegas fan. And like if you're like a Black Isle fan, like if you liked the old school Fallout, like 1 and 2 tactics in New Vegas, the actual good Fallout. If you actually liked good Fallout, then you'll hate the show. If you're a Bethesda cum guzzler, then you're going to love this show. That's like the main divide. One could say what I just said was very biasedly phrased. One would be correct. I fucking hate what they did with Fallout 4. But I'm gonna go on a rant. Fallout show was trash. I think it was. Absolutely was. I won't. Oh, again, I'm trying not to spoil those EFAP style like episode reviews that we're doing. I do want you guys to check those out because they were fun to do, and I think it'd be fun for you guys to watch. Oh, but god damn. I go on a couple rants, just a couple. That would have been such a cool show idea though. The Courier conquers the new empire. That would have been so awesome. What Fallout do I like most? Fallout 2, probably. I loved 1, I loved the Master, but I think 2 was probably like the better experience of the games, I think. It was a bit more to do. They'd refine the systems a little bit better. And plus Frank Horrigan was such a fun villain. So yeah, I definitely put my hat on saying Fallout 2 is the best. New Vegas is the best of the non-traditional RPGs, if that makes sense. Like non-top-down view. First-person shooter. Like it's the best of the first-person shooter RPG sect, but it doesn't really have a lot of competition in that regard story-wise. Like Fallout 3 was okay. I would defend it a little bit. Its tone was really good. Its atmosphere was really heavy. And also that opening for Fallout 3. Like, I don't want to set the world on fire. Everyone knows that. Like, the moment you hear that song, you don't think of the original artist or think where that song comes from. You think Fallout. And they did a good job atmospherically with Fallout 3. Everything else in Fallout 3 sucked. Hot take. But everything else really was bad. But damn, did that atmosphere carry that game. They actually have villains? Fallout 3 and 4? They actually have villains. Fallout 3 and 4, some Enclave Colonel, and the 4, you're just destroying a lab. Yeah, that's true. Fallout 1 and 2 had, the Master in Fallout 1, then you had Frank Horgan in the Enclave and the President uh, in Fallout 2. And then Fallout New Vegas, you could argue Fallout New Vegas didn't have one clear villain. Because that the beauty of Fallout New Vegas out of the whole series is that it gives you the avenues and the options, right? Like, this is a way you can go for this. You can basically you choose personally who is the villain. That's like a personal question. I would make the argument the only objective villain in that game is Caesar, like in the Legion. Like, I'm sorry, you can't tell me crucifying and enslaving people in any capacity is good. But some would argue that that's just my subjective view. Everyone is bad, true, but there's different degrees. There's different degrees in New Vegas. The NCR are just corrupt douchebags. Like, they're like the modern world with their issues, but they have a better mission statement. Roy Dodge Arch is here. He was. We just finished up the interview. Now I'm just kind of hanging with chat, and then I'm gonna wrap up. But if you want to watch the Arch interview, Rolling Dodge, just start over from the beginning, and we finished up like 10 minutes ago. So the vast majority of the stream is the interview. You stand the NCR? Yeah. Also, as I'm going to finish one of the thumbnails today. Yeah, love to hear it. I'll send it to you once I'm done. Yeah, well, don't push yourself too hard. Take your time. And I can't wait to see it. Cannot wait to see it, lass. New Vegas, better story. Fallout 4, better graphics. Yeah, actually, that'd be a really cool fan project, but it wouldn't be a mod. It would have to be like a, from the ground up indie game, pretty much. But if someone could take like the graphics of Fallout 4, clean them up a little bit, because I think everything looks a little too plasticky or clay-like in Fallout 4. But if they could clean it up like a little bit better, and they took the story and the setting of New Vegas and they combined them, that's an instant game of the year in 2024. In 2025. Do it. I'd say Mr. House was the best pick. And again, this is the fun of talking about New Vegas, right? Is that any of the choices you can make an argument for and against, and it's completely valid. So I can't blame you for picking Mr. House Ace, but I still disagree with that choice. Mine would still be the NCR, despite all their corruption and all their flaws. Mainly because those can still be fixed, especially since at that point the NCR was still growing and was still expanding, and their government was kind of set in stone, but you could still make alterations to it. It had the potential to be saved if the right moves were made. Whereas with Mr. House, it'd basically be a monarchy under his rule. Well, he actually said what his system would be. I'm trying to remember what it was, but he'd be a dictator effectively. Like, and he makes a very good pitch. He's a very good businessman with how he explains himself. Like, he's like, yeah, give me 10 years, I'll be like revitalizing the tech sectors. Give me 20 years, I'll have completely rebuilt society and restructured it. Give me 30 years, and my my colony ships will be escaping orbit, looking for new worlds, not corrupted by the folly of a bygone generation. That's all extremely compelling and really well worded and delivered. He's a damn good businessman. But if you actually look at his actions throughout, like in terms of the game, if you look at his treatment of just the strip, like how he handles that robot that follows us around, the cowboy, like how he literally set him to not help us during the initial fight in Good Springs. Like, if you pay attention to how he actually practices himself as he currently is, the guy's corrupt, and he's definitely gonna make a great future. But for who is the big question. And with him being the main power and control of everything, especially if he got the platinum chip and upgraded all of his bots with the new OS, I don't think he'd be a good choice. He'd be a full authoritarian nut job. So I can't agree that he'd be a good pick. Again, he solidly sold himself, but if you actually pay attention to his actions, the guy was a shithead and was definitely picking and choosing out of people that he actually wanted to have a better life. Under House, I don't think things would objectively be better. I find it impossible to like anything with California in the name. I agree, but to be fair to New Vegas, first of all, the game was made in the early 2000s. Not saying California wasn't cringe then. It was just not as bad. Ron Dodge, is Asmogan watching the Fallout show? Seems like something fans of Fallout may dislike. Yes, the reason we're kind of on this is I mentioned offhand that me and a couple of my friends on my Discord have been recording EFAP style like watch throughs of each episode. I gotta edit them because there ain't no way that's passing the copyright bot just uploading them raw. I wish I could upload them raw, but there's way too much music, and some of it I'm pretty confident is is good. Like it's old enough that it's like publicly usable. But some of it I think might be not remakes, but like covers of old jazzy music and stuff. And I think that might be where they'll get us if I don't like edit it properly. But yeah, I will upload those hopefully in the next few days. My hope is to probably have an episode uploadable by Friday. I know that seems like a long time, but I also got to get the next Voxcast episode edited and uploaded, and we're recording another Voxcast episode tonight as well. I have a very busy schedule. I'm also finishing out my 2 weeks notice at my my day job because I'm starting a new job soon as well. There's a lot happening. There's a lot happening. Mark DeShame, thank you for the $10, man. Much appreciated. Age of the Star Child lore, the Maledictum Astra Galacticus annihilation event saw the Warhammer 40k galaxy shattered. The Maga Marines seek to destroy the Star Child in every galaxy in the universe. I love the pitch. Get writing on the full story, man. Oh wait, no. Hold on. That actually is that am I crazy? That actually sounds familiar. Hold on, is that actually that legit? Or am I convincing myself that... Am I crazy? That sounds familiar. I'm sorry, I'm just looking up. If you're referencing something or if you're pitching something here. No, okay. No. Okay. For a second there, I was like, wait, is that actually in 40k somewhere? But because it sounded familiar, but no, I'm no, okay. Well, I think we're good. I think we're good. I don't see it anyway in the initial Google search. So before I head out, guys, is there any like pressing questions or anything else you'd like to ask me before I head out, or anything like that? Anything you just kind of want to throw out there before I wrap up? Deadman84, I just left almost every 40k, almost every channel and group pertaining to 40 Games Workshop games I was a part of, and will not be going back. Can't blame you. And I am new to the game and done already. I'm sorry to hear it, man. And wish you could have joined at a better time. Damn, they come for BattleTech too. Oh, they've been coming for BattleTech. They invaded their Discord servers. Go check out Mage Leader if you want to. He's part of the BattleTech community, and he's done great coverage about that. So, look up Mage Leader. He's awesome. It destroys the Warhammer 40,000 galaxy. Think end times. Vahara 2. I don't know. Have you recovered from licking my balls? Have a good one. You too, Joshua. Why don't we just create a non-woke competitor to Jiba? That's what I'm working on currently. I mean, if you guys will allow me, I can share with you guys a bit. Like, I'm working on a tabletop war game in the background right now. I wish I could make more progress on it, but unfortunately I have a day job. And I can't afford the lovely concept art I've been getting for it if I don't have a day job. So, been busy. Arch did the smart thing, though. Arch did the smart thing. He didn't... Like, I publicly announced my project a while back, and Arch has been keeping his hush-hush. I should have kept mine hush-hush, because I I think by announcing it, I think people thought I was further along than I was. That was my bad, though. Ah. Let me just do this. I'll share with you guys what if you guys want, I can share with you guys right now what I have for, I'll share what I have right now for I'll even warp it, so, there you go. Well, I don't want to warp it too much, because I actually want you guys to get, like, a genuine image here. Boom. But I can share with you guys what I got so far for my tabletop war game I'm working on. Well, one's in the chat if you guys want to see it. Two's in the chat if you're not interested. What about Space King? Actually, that's one thing I've been thinking of in the background is, like, what if the Flash gets, like, in response to all this, want to start developing their own tabletop game. That would require them to 3D model, like, a lot of stuff, though. 1. Okay. It's pretty universal. Everybody wants to see it. Okay. Let me pull up my files, then. There is a lot to it, so you'll have to forgive me. There's a lot of files. I guess I'll start off with this one. Alright, so here's just some sample artwork. And right now, I have an artist named Pyrrhus. He was actually earlier in the chat. He's also known Jacob Jones, one of the most talented artists I've met. He's done all the artwork you guys are about to see. He's done all the concept art. And I've been doing all the writing, obviously. That's pretty much the team so far that's been working on it. Son of Mouse, thank you for the $5, man. Hey, brother, there's something called Trench Crusade. That is pretty badass looking. Maybe give it a look. I'm doing a full swap from Warhammer 40k, or Warhammer to that. I might take a look. I've been looking at Conflict 47, but I'll give that a look. I mean, I haven't heard of it, so Trench Crusade. I'll take a look. I'll take a look. But yeah, this is. I'm trying to pull up different concept arts for it. Hold on. Just gonna pull up a bunch of different ones here. I'll talk about them in a second. I'm just pulling them up so I actually have them to. They're in a bunch of different folders. I have a lot around this. All right. That should be enough, like, of a sample. Well, I'll pull up one more. There we go. So for those who've been following my channel for a while, you'll recognize some of these for sure. You'll recognize some of these for sure. I'm getting the first new one in a while coming soon. Again, my artist is working on it, but he takes his time, which I appreciate. So this is all from the tabletop game I'm developing called Warglaive Gothic, abbreviation WG. And I've been working on it for about 2 years now. Unfortunately, it's pretty much just been me working on it. Again, I have an artist that I commissioned for all these artworks. He's the same artist because I do want a consistent artistic display of everything. And he's very talented. He's worth every penny, and I'm sad I can't pay him more, to be honest. But he's been working on the concept art for me, and then there's me. I've been working on the books. I've been working on a comic, which I'm also illustrating. Doesn't look amazing. I'm not as talented of an artist, but hopefully the story makes up for a little bit of the lack of artistic ability. And Warglaive Gothic, kind of like as a sales pitch, I suppose. It's a grimdark sci-fi setting that takes place at an unknown period in the future from our current time period. It is in a different galaxy from the one we hail from. It takes place in the Shade Galaxy, and it is rife with war. Now, 3 of the 5 factions I had planned for the first edition were originally once human, and that would be the Terran Republic, which are still biologically human, but technologically they are very much advanced from where we are now. They are kind of a mix of colonial marines from aliens, and kind of a culturally, not just in combat, but also overall, they're culturally similar to a more feudalistic Japan in terms of their honor system, in terms of their ranking systems. There are noble families, but everyone is inclined to fight. It's a very militaristic society in the Terran Republic, to the point where their leader of their faction is just called the Chancellor Militant, and everyone across the Republic is required to serve in the military at the age of 16 at the youngest, and they can be enlisted earlier if they physically meet the requirements by the age of 14. But everyone is required to serve. And they do place you based on your skill sets that you are naturally inclined to. And they put you through a rigmarole of tests at the age of 16 to see what you're most capable and what you're most skilled at. And they place you where you are most useful. If you're naturally inclined for medicine, you're sent to be a doctor or a nurse. If you're most inclined for fighting and for combat, they send you for combat training, and they send you to the front lines. If you're a capable pilot and a technician, you're sent to pilot their mechs. And this faction is very mech heavy. They have mechs called the Onis, and they have much bigger ones. I won't spoil everything, but this will be a very mech heavy faction outside of their soldiery. The two ways I envision this being played, their faction being played on the tabletop, is either a horde army with their infantry, or there'll be a heavy mech army, or a mix of the two. That's going to be the general build with the Terran Republic. So that's the Terrans. These are this showcases two factions in it, but the one in the front, the werewolves, that is the Warborn. The Warborn were also once human. Unlike the Terrans, though, biologically, they have evolved quite a bit. There are some clear inspirations, by the way, from other things. I'm not going to pretend there's not. I wear my inspirations on my shoulder, but there are differences. Surface level, very similar to some things you might be thinking, but in depth, there's a lot of differences and a lot of unique things. So... all right, let me switch. So, the Warborn are biologically much bigger than the Terrans are. Again, the Terrans are, think of baseline human. The Warborn are a race of that were once human, that were, to try and summarize their lore, but it's very criminal to summarize it too much. But cornering the furry market, hey, I have a mind for marketing. But the Warborn are very much a Viking-like culture. They are mixed up in a lot of tribalism. They have a lot of clans, family clans in particular. They are all unified under the banner of being Warborn. That is what they call themselves. And they are led by the War Chief. The War Chief is the highest position you can attain within Warborn society. And all of the clan chiefs, all of the thanes, all the jarls, again, wear my inspirations on my shoulders, they answer to the War Chief. And there is no position equal to the War Chief. He is the top dog, and he dictates where the Warborn conduct war, where they conduct raids, where they fight. And the Warborn is also the only one that can decline to go to war, that can rescind it. And at any time, the Warborn can be replaced by a challenger. And the cool thing about oh man, I'm going to go on a rant if I go too much. But there's a lot to the faction. And one cool thing is almost all of them are werewolves, effectively. They all have the capability to transform, with a couple of exceptions, either due to genetic faults. And the reason for that, again, without going into too much detail, is early on in the Warborn's history. Because how humans entered this galaxy is they came on 3 great arc ships. Each of their cultures refer to them as the Spears of Humanity. And the 3 spears, at some point, for an unknown reason, it's known to me, by the way. I've written out the whole lore, but I'm keeping a lot of things vague from the early points, and I have no intention of revealing them for a very long time. Like, the cool thing about being the creator is I know shit you guys won't know. And you guys will probably... I can't wait to, like, see speculation about it and everything. Once the actual first editions go up, the first books go up, I'm excited. But there's still a huge amount of stuff I got to do before I'm ready. I don't want to release a half-baked game, so I'm not going to rush it. But, yeah, the Warborn, were one of the human colony ships. They crash landed on an ice world, and there they initially struggled to survive because the wildlife was extremely hostile. Everything there was extremely dangerous, but they quickly found ways to adapt best they could, but only after the population dwindled to only less than 100,000. And keep in mind, the colony ships that they landed on had populations of a couple million inside, and that's how many died over the course of trying to survive and figure out how to adapt to the environment. But eventually they did, and at some point in their history, a alien species, a Xenos species, came to the planet and conducted experiments on what they thought were local wildlife, and that included the humans that had crash landed. And part of it was genome splicing and also experimenting on, making DNA and genetics capable of being put into flux. There's a lot I'd love to go into, but trying to specify. They, Warborn, eventually rebelled and were able to kill the Xenos that had captured and experimented on them, but not before basically their whole population had a similar experiment done to them. Thus resulting in the vast majority of the Warborn to this day being able to transform into a werewolf or into other were creatures effectively. Now, the reason it's werewolf or werebears and not some alien species that was on the planet is because the colony ship they landed on contained a vast quantity of genetic genomes and DNA samples of wildlife from what was Earth. Why is that? I know you won't know for a long time. So, yeah. It's a lot, but the vast majority of the Warborn are werewolves. Specific families are like werebears or werefoxes, stuff like that. To say I've cornered the furry market is not untrue with this. But also it satisfies, fans of like a Viking style culture, a raiding style culture. Also, even in their human forms, the average Warborn is typically about 7 feet tall. They're pretty large. Magnus Lord, thank you for the $2, man. XX and 40k was a huge mistake. Keep 40k 100% XY. Oh, you mean chromosome? Again, I don't think it was a matter of. I think they should continue to have catered to men, and the few women that did or were interested should have continued to come in, but expect to have everything catered to men. Like that's normal. But if what you're saying is like women shouldn't have been accepted or let in, I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is again like the politics of it. Were hamster. That's an idea. All right, so that's the war. Actually, I guess I'll show you some of the sketches Pierce did for this. Yeah, Pierce has just been a huge boon to me while I've been working on this. Then there's also another faction. This is one of the Xenos factions. They're called the Ghouls. Oh, sorry. The faction's called the Gretsch, but these are Ghouls. They're like the basic infantry. And the concept behind like everything in Warglaive Gothic is it's based on everything I'm passionate about or love. So every faction is based on something that I think is cool. So like the werewolves and the Vikings thing. I think Vikings are cool. I think werewolves are cool. And my favorite movie monster is the Wolfman. So that's why they're there. I'm a huge fan of classic horror and like the old Hammer horror and stuff. So that's why the werewolves are there. There's also, we'll get to them, but there's also a faction of vampires. And then there's these guys. And this is based kind of loosely on the idea of what if John Carpenter's 1982 The Things creature was a species and they were in a war game. That's the Gretsch. The Gretsch are roughly that idea. And they have the most mysticism around their background. Again, I know, like, this is one thing I think all writers should do. But when you're writing a universe, you, as the writer, should know the answers to every, or at least the most questions from the outset. But there's lots of things I'm going to intentionally keep vague. And some things I plan to never reveal to you guys. But, I still know the answer. And Yeah, these guys have the most going on. The coolest thing about the Gretsch is they're like the thing, but obviously I can't have them be as powerful as the thing was, because the thing from the John Carpenter's 1982 thing, it could mutate you just by getting a little bit into your blood. Like, it didn't need to like rip you open and like eat you and then become you. Now, obviously, that's kind of hard to work with in a setting and writing around. It's great for a single like one-off horror, but as a whole faction, that makes them pretty OP. So they're a little bit more nerfed from that, but the Gretsch, what their main thing is, they're very slow moving and they consume a lot of biomass. And biomass is how they create things. Now, the ghouls are a great example. This is they just take some biomass from different creatures or things that they've eaten. They mesh it together and then create drones or create different things for different uses. And this is another unit of theirs. These are the Gretsch Brutes. The Brutes are these guys, but like three of them like crack open and split open. Their bones piercing everywhere. Their flesh connects to each other, and they form together. And three of them make a Gretsch Brute. Brutes are much bigger units, and they're tanks. They're brutal. They're brutes. They go in, smash, 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 hardcore, and they can take a lot of hits. They're tanks. They're savage to go through. So yeah. So that's like the concept I have for them so far. There's some other stuff, but it's still in the works. But that's the Gretsch. This is a little bit of a preview image of two factions. So this is one of the characters in the lore. I don't know if I want to go on the tangent of her, but she's really cool. I know, women in my writing. Oh no. But here's the thing. I'm writing it in from the outset. I'm not retconning like 40 years of lore. But I digress. And this is also showing off. Now, some of you are probably going to say Skaven. There is a little bit like I've worked it out with my artist Pierce. He's great again, but this was kind of a mistranslation on my part when we were talking about it. I wanted a faction that was gnolls, you know, like anthropomorphic hyenas, and it ended up like I was talking about like their weaseliness and their kind of like mischievousness, and I think at some point there was a bit of a miscommunication, and we ended up having not just one, but a couple artworks that ended up looking more rat-like. So yes, I understand Space Skaven. And in a way, they are kind of like Space Skaven. But they're supposed to be gnolls. They're supposed to be hyenas. So, But aesthetically and culturally, they are kind of like Space Skaven. They are kind of like that. Hey, Space Skaven isn't a quarter mark yet, so go for it. But yeah, like I'm not worried about like copyright or anything. It's just that's not what they were supposed to be. They're supposed to be gnolls, so it's an unintentional thing. But yeah, this showcase a character from the Sovereignty. That's the vampire faction. Like the Warborn and like the Terrans, they came on one of the 3 colony ships and they crash landed on a different planet than the other 2. That's what kind of created the different factions. They landed in different places in the galaxy, and the timeline of the lore starts where they come in. And the latest point in the lore is through 3000, the year 3852. And that's, again, that timeline, though, starts when they entered the galaxy. Who knows how many years in the future it is from us now when they came from our galaxy? What's Earth look like? Why did they come here? I know the answer. You don't. Let's see. Here's some more artwork about, or in regards to the Sovereignty. So, in the Sovereignty, the whole species have become vampires. The gist of the story there is they crash landed on a planet with a large like black cloud around it that was so thick like sunlight really doesn't bleed through it. Light and heat is generated on the planet via a crystalline energy that kind of emits a radiation that's not very harmful to humans as long as you don't touch it or like directly engage with it, but it keeps the surface warm and prevents it from going cold despite the sun rays. And on the planet, the humans initially started colonizing with little issues. The wildlife was rough, and the lack of sunlight was rough, but they landed. Though it was a crash landing, the Ark ships were designed to land roughly, so they were able to splice together some of their tech from their ship, and they were able to onboard onto the planet with minimal casualties. There was quite almost the full complement of the ship's crew and its colonists landed successfully. About 3.7 million. Only a couple 100,000 died in the crash. Again, we're talking larger numbers. So the species, they landed, they colonized, and then from there, they expanded. Unfortunately, the planet, after the casualties, they began to expand, and then there was a roughness that occurred. Again, I'm trying to summarize. Basically, there was a mineral style like flower, kind of like a black rose. It emitted pheromones that were diseased. And though the wildlife and the local creatures were used to it and they weren't infected by it, the humans were. And a plague began to spread amongst the entire human colonists. And they were losing people day in and day out. It was like the Black Plague. There was no way to combat it. Traditional medicine was not working. And they resorted to a lot of different things. They were trying pretty much everything to save the population. And going back in the ship wasn't working. They had no way to escape the atmosphere. The casualties were immense, and they were dying left and right. So they decided, in all their panic, instead of trying to find like a cure or an antidote, they were trying to find a way to make the human body adapt. So they started gene splicing. And they started doing that by taking the local creatures and splicing their DNA with the humans. Virtually every creature didn't work. It was a mutation of horrors, just trying to find something with a similar genome, and nothing was working. Everything they made, they just kept making abominations. And towards the end of their population starting to get completely crumbled, they finally found a creature on the planet that worked. It was a large leech species. These big, large, pale leeches. Each one was like 7 feet in length, huge in girth, and they sucked the blood out of your body near instantaneously. They were dangerous predators to deal out in the outskirts of their society. But they finally said, why don't we just try these? And they found that their genome, their DNA, had enough in common with human DNA that it was able to work. Just enough. And though the first few experiments failed, the end result finally did. They finally successfully spliced the DNA, and it resulted in a vampire-like species. Now, to save the whole population, they desperately began splicing everyone that they could that had survived. And they were, over the course of a couple of years, they were able to get as many saved as possible, but they went from a population of 3.7 million to just about 150,000. A huge loss of life due to that plague. But they were able to successfully alter their DNA and splice it and became a new species. Now, psychologically, they struggled with it at first because we're not human anymore. Like we are different. Like their skin went pale, their canines got sharper and slightly longer, and their eyes turned to orange color. It was so rough on them. But psychologically, they had a fork in the road to pick. They either said, okay, we can either fall into depression and lament the fact that we're no longer human, or we can make the best of it. We can say, hey, we are this now, and it's not so bad. It's not so bad. We're better. We're cool. If anything, this makes us superior to what we were. And thus, because of that fork in the road, they decided to go with that path. We're better. And it kind of led, it started out as just like, hey, we're better now, to, we're not only better, we're better than everybody. We're fucking gods as we walk. And thus, their society developed from there. Now, again, I could go on a full tirade, but in the modern timeline, that's like the way back towards the beginning of the timeline. But in the modern timeline, thousands of years later, the sovereignty is very different from how they started. See, so this is actually also an image of the sovereignty, but this is like their basic soldiers. Now, the reason they're wearing like the face masks and gas masks a la Krieg style is because when they go on worlds with sunlight, they find that they have a weakness to it. Now, it's not like the traditional one where if they see it, like, oh, they turn to ash. It's more like an extreme sensitivity. It's like being a ginger. Or like being an albino. Like, too much sun kind of burns you. So it hurts, it's discomforting. They can fight in it, but it's rough. Only like the veterans like bother taking off their helmets. So the vast majority of their soldiery wear full body coverage wherever they go on any planet. Even if it's a hot planet, it's better to be a little hot than have that sunlight kind of singe you. Finn says, I like this faction the most so far. I spent the most amount of time on so far anyway. That's just because of like I've had to like divvy up my time as best I can writing everything. But they are the ones I spent like the most time on. The Warborn I spent a lot of time on as well. But yeah, the sovereignty, they're one of the bigger powers. Like everyone's a big power in their own right, but the sovereignty are definitely a unique one, and I like them a lot. I personally, I love the Warborn the most, but I love all of them. Like, they're all my babies. So, yeah, these are so their basic military are called the Jackals. The Jackals, kind of think of the term Jackal as applying to the army, right? Like, that's their army. That's basic. It's not like a specific unit. It's the whole army. So, the force would be called the Jackals. But given their talents with gene splicing, because over the years, because it saved their species, they kind of grew an obsession with genetic manipulation. And in that time, they created a super soldier. Unlike 40K and other settings, though, they didn't take like children or child soldiers to make them. They're clones. So let's kind of go back to this artwork. No, this one. This is called a Helsing. Now, the explanation for why they're calling them Helsings is a lot of what the sovereignty landed with initially. They had a lot of old documents in their ship in terms of like not as U.S. history, but history of the world from Earth. But it was all greatly damaged. So not all the stories could be read through and through, so they only got certain words or certain things that survived the crash. And one of them was a story about Van Helsing and Dracula. But the story was incredibly corrupted. So what they could make out of it was this great warrior that was fighting something to do with blood and defeated the enemy he was against. It was very vague, so they weren't sure what it was. But from that, they decided, okay, these new super soldiers are these great warriors, and they are fighting on behalf of our people because the sovereignty are, as a race, they do need blood to survive. It's one of the consequences of splicing their genetics with the leeches, is they do need to drink blood to survive. They can eat normal food and like eat like varying foods, but part of their diet has to include, blood, or they won't survive. So the sovereignty created these super soldiers. Now, the sovereignty is led by the Empress of the sovereignty. She is the oldest living of what they call themselves as a species, the Crypta. And she's the oldest living one. Now, after they splice their genetics, the sovereignty get to live to be, on average, a normal Crypta lives to be about 200 and 250. Sometimes they can live up to be 300 years old. But that's like the average lifespan. And then there's the Empress. The Empress is one of the lead geneticists that does most of this genetic fuckery in the modern lore. And her background is a bit vague. They know at one point, as the sovereignty was growing, they tried to build a republic, like a democratic republic, but it resulted in a lot of corruption. And there was also a lot of strife socially. And then out of the blue, the Empress began kind of posing herself and began making promises that she would lead their people to better places than where they'd come from. They would expand and become a great empire. And again, as a culture that coped with becoming what they did by thinking of themselves as superior, that kind of that gelled with a lot of them, and she took power. And the rest has been history. She's been alive for a few thousand years, and again, she's a powerful geneticist. I don't know if I want to reveal more than that. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. So she's kind of the head honcho of the empire, of the sovereignty, and she is the one who developed the Helsings. The Helsings are clones, and the clones are developed from a combination of artificial DNA and some DNA that was taken from specific individuals that the Empress deemed as prime material to build off of. So the genetics taken from specific people are just to fill in the gaps that artificial written code can't properly do, and thus creating an embryo and then a person. So where the crypta on average are the same height as a normal person, like you and I would be, so 6 foot tall to anywhere between like 4'11" to all the way to being 6 foot. That's like a normal crypta. They're like normal humans in that regard. And then there's these guys. They are clones. So their genetics are also more refined and also enhanced. So from the outset, they are much bigger. The average Helsing is 7.5 feet tall to 8.5 feet tall. Now, unlike Space Marines, because they're designed from an embryo to accept a lot of their genetic organ enhancements and additions, their bodies grow in a more leaner fashion. They're not typically big and giant and bulky. Some of them are, but that's from either further enhancements after they already grew up the way that they were, or because of actual physical enhancements that like exercise. So, but they're generally leaner than like a Space Marine would be. They because they're not like inflating what a normal human would be. Their start from the outset, they're just bigger. Ultra Brights and Gene Warriors, interesting. Yep. So yeah, this is a good example of a Helsing. This isn't like a normal Crypta soldier. And their suits are powered with the same stones and crystals that can be found on Mordred, which is the name of their homeworld. And that's how they power everything. That's their power source. And it also powers their suits. And this is like the average armor that is worn by them. They have a lot of different... So how the Helsings are structured culturally, because they're artificial clones, but they have personalities, they have experiences, they're unique. What's interesting about them is that culturally, they're kind of like knights, and they have different houses. The houses, think of them as like chapters for Space Marines, but they're for them, it's knight houses. And the different houses are developed usually in regards to like different nobility on Mordred coming to power. So, for example, there's House Corvus. Their house came to power in the year 1822. When they came into power, they were recognized by the Empress, and when you're recognized by the Empress and you join her political party, wouldn't necessarily be true, but her council of respected nobility, she awards that house the protectorate and the control of a sect of Helsings. And that sect is a house. Now, the houses don't have a number limit to their development, or like how many you can have. It's usually just how many the Empress is willing to delve out to you, and it's usually based on your favor with her. But the houses each have roughly around 2,000 to 2,500. And the reason there isn't like an immense number more than that, is typically because it takes a long time to create new Helsings. Like, that's the downside with their development, is you can't make very many of them at a time. Like, they're developed in batches, and the batches have flaws. They have initial development problems. So the chaff of them are cut out. The weak ones, where the cloning process didn't work properly, or there was holes with it, or there was just something faulty with the clone, and thus they had to put it down. Hey, Zoid. No, like, the chat inquired about it, so I'm just going on my tirade. Yeah, so I'm just giving like different explanations. I'm probably going into too much detail at this point about one's faction, but yeah, to kind of speed it along. So the Helsings are the super soldiers of the sovereignty, and the Warborn on average are the same size as them. So one other thing to mention about the Helsings is they are almost all male. The reason I say almost is there are extremely rare exceptions that almost never happen. And this is not me trying to like cater to feminism or anything like that. This is just something that I wrote in the lore because I genuinely think it's cool. And also because I had a specific character in mind. But within the sovereignty, I'll bring you back to this artwork. There, with the cloning process of creating Helsings, it's pooled from a random assortment of genetics that the Empress deemed worthy of cloning. Now, almost all of that is male genetics because you're trying to make the ultimate soldier. However, during the cloning process, there is a very, 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 very low percentage of the clone being female. Now, we're not talking low as in, oh, like in every batch of 100, there might be one female. Not even that much. We're talking out of every 10,000 clones made, there may be one female. And typically, the females don't survive the embryo process. So even with that, it's rare to get a full clone. In the entire 3,000 years the sovereignty has existed, and the 2,000 years they've been creating Helsings, there have only been 2 female Helsings. The first one died, and I'm writing the first like novel I'm writing for the lore is taking place from the perspective of the second. This lovely lady by the name of Melina. So, sounds like Queenie ain't fond of replacements. I will simply stroke my beard in response to that so I don't spoil nothing. Or teasers, so many things I can imagine happening. This sounds like a badass game. I am aiming to do my very best to make it as cool as possible. And again, the whole thing is written not with any politics in mind. Everything written in is just because I think it's cool. Now, I do have internal politics for the universe, but yeah, I'm not doing any kind of messaging bullshit. But yes, this is Melina. And she is as of the current, even the modern timeline, because she's been alive at the modern point of the timeline for 300 years or so. So she's older than the oldest normal crypta, but the average lifespan for a Helsing is not known. They typically die long before they get an opportunity to test it. But in the terms of the modern lore, she's about 350 years old. The novel I'm writing takes place from when she's first, born and brought into the world to become a combatant. And through her experience, she has learned a lot. She is in the modern lore, she has grown to she's a captain of a vanguard unit, and vanguard that's what the name implies. They jump into battle and they rush enemy lines. They typically do scouting, but oftentimes they do assassination jobs as well. They rush the enemy lines. They try and break through in a very pinpoint, accurate, precision attacks. Yeah. Is Melina on her way to Empress? I will not spoil. I will simply say you're thinking in the right regards. But yeah, this is Melina. And the Empress... Almost said something I shouldn't. Is the electricity in the weapons because they aim to stun their opponents so they can take them alive? Yes, actually. Very good catch. Yes, the electrical energy is they do try and capture opponents to drain them for blood. They do, in their the energy output of their weaponry fluctuates. So they can increase it to the point where it's like a power sword. So it just cuts through shit. And then they lower it to like a stun. So they'll still cut you, but it'll shock you and stun you and bring you down. That way they can capture you. That is the main goal of the expansion of the sovereignty. Now, obviously they want to expand territory because it is good to have more worlds, more resources. But one of the main things culturally that they're expanding for is they're trying to capture more sources of blood. and other species keep them alive, that is a consequence of them. But again, they've coped with it over the years by saying, hey, we're the best. Everything should be grateful that we're draining and harvesting them for blood. And there are worlds within the sovereignty's territory that are harvest worlds, where they have captured a populace, and it's a mixture of different Xenos races that they can drain for blood, and, well, let's just say the Terran Republic and the Warborn aren't nice to each other, let alone them, and the three factions don't get along. And let's just say the greatest source of blood is one you're familiar with that you know you can drink. Terrans, because they're basically humans. So, yeah, the Harvest Worlds include a lot of people in them, and what they do is they regularly drain them for blood. Now, of course, the Harvest Worlds aren't enough to keep the populace fed and keep them satiated on blood. Despite how careful they are to try and keep the populace alive on those worlds and harvest them in regular intervals, they do try their best, but the output demand will be met regardless of the casualties necessary in the harvest worlds. So that is a cool element to the sovereignty. It's fucked up, but it's cool. And now but we've talked about the three human races. I'm gonna, and again, I've taken up a lot of your time, but let me also showcase some of the Xenos races, because three out of the 5 factions are from the humans, but very different culturally. Let's switch gears towards Xenos. Well, I actually did show you the Gretsch, so I showed you at least one of them. Actually, there's 6 factions. My bad. I keep throwing out the fucking... Alright, so here's the next one. These are the Volk. The Volk are the oldest race in the Shade Galaxy. They are the oldest. They have been, well, next to the Gretsch. Again, the Gretsch, it's not known how old they are, not known how long they've been around, not know why they're even here. But I'll go back to that. But these are the Volk. They are a species, an arachnid-like species, that are extremely technologically advanced. They are a caste-based system in terms of their culture. They are led by a matriarch. She produces she produces quite a few of their soldiers. Sorry. She doesn't... So one cool thing about the Volk is they're not like a traditional insect hive where everything, like the whole hive is basically comes out of the queen. Like the queen is the one that lays all the larvae and everything. It's not like that. She does lay all of the soldiery larvae. Like basically all of the soldiers or all the ones that are set to be born from eggs that will become part of the warrior caste come from the queen and become from the matriarch. But the rest of their citizenry, their civilian populace, they can have their own children in couples or couplings or even harems and stuff like that. They are allowed to have their own, but they're not allowed to become soldiers. They can become engineers, mechanics. They can become shipwrights. They can become pilots. They just can't become fighters. That's entirely on the matriarch. It's more spider than ant. Yeah. The Volk, you'll notice, don't have mouths. That's... Oh, and I should also mention the cape. The capes are colored depending on your caste. If you have a red cape, you are part of the warrior caste. If you have an orange cape, you're part of the engineer caste. If you have a blue cape, you are a scientist. You are a researcher. And if you have a white cape, you are an elder. So what elders are is the queen creates the warrior caste, and she does manage and control the society. But she's not the only voice that controls it. She has a council of elders. Oftentimes, the elders do most of the governance in her place. Typically, the queen only comes into play when a major decision needs to be made, one that could fundamentally affect the Volk as a whole. But generally, like everyday things are handled by the elders. So the elders are from every caste, and they are the most experienced member of each caste. It's basically, are you the oldest? Have you been doing this longest? Do you have the most experience? Okay, you're now the elder because the previous elder died. That's how it works. So there is a warrior caste elder who, should come as no surprise, has the most sway. Tends to happen when you're the most aggressive out of the bunch. And then there's the engineer elder, the scientist elder, And they also do. I guess I'll reveal this about the setting. There are in this universe psychics and psychers. There isn't like magical warp lightning. They don't have that. So there isn't like straight up magic, but by another name in the system. There's just telekinesis and telepathy. That's like the only two like special powers anybody has. For example, the Empress of the Sovereignty, like I mentioned before, she's one of the most powerful telekinetics and telepaths within the Empire, within the Sovereignty. And there's also those within the Warborn, but they're typically thought of as shamans. And they're seen as like witch doctors and stuff. The Terran Republic has them as well, but they're kept on lock and key. There's a lot of suspicion around them, and they either end up in one of two places: dead because of suspicion of them being weird, or part of a secret service within the Terran Republic, kind of like their SS. Or I guess SS is less accurate, more akin to CIA, but some would argue what's the difference. So are there more than one matriarch? If not, it seems very counterproductive from an exponent. There have been more than one matriarch. It's not like there's one matriarch throughout their history. They have one overarching matriarch for their entire society. There are different worlds, and their governor equivalent is called a sub-matriarch. So, for example, a colony world where they've expanded their culture, they would have a queen or matriarch equivalent there who is like the main governance of that planet. However, in terms of the grand society as a whole, she is subsidiary to the great matriarch, the matriarch. So there are other matriarchs in regards to the expansion, and there have been power struggles because there's nothing really definitively differing between one matriarch and another in terms of the actual power, and really genetically there is something different about like the matriarch and her whole family. Like the matriarch is a direct descendant from the very first matriarch of their culture. And there's a huge expansive background written about where the vote came from. I don't want to reveal that, but point is, there is more than one matriarch, but there's only one matriarch in terms of the whole governance. The sub matriarchs are typically governesses. Ooh, Nick. So yeah, that's a brief rundown of the Voke. They are a caste system, and they are probably populace-wise, they have the smallest population. So on the tabletop, I'm not going to design it this way, but obviously people are going to jury-rig their armies. But I'm not going to design them around the idea of being a horde army. It's not going to be really effective. They're definitely built for more of a... I guess if I had to really compare them on how I envision them on the tabletop, they're going to be more kind of like the Eldar from Warhammer 40k. You know, fast attack but can't take a lot of hits, kind of thing. They're also going to have a little bit of range on them. Again, the one thing I don't see them being played as is a horde army, unless someone really wanted to do that. But I could see like every other type of like army build will work with them, like a medium force with some heavy artillery or other mixes of stuff. That's kind of how I envision them being played. Oh. All right. Let me see if I pulled it up already. Nope, I haven't pulled up that yet. Okay. I will pull up. There it is. The Rathen. All right. And again, like I said, there was a little bit of a miscommunication with my artist, and they ended up looking a lot more like Space Skaven. That's not what they're supposed to. They're supposed to be gnolls, like they're hyenas. So this is an example of one of the Rathen's chiefs. So within and if you check out my Patreon, each of the tiers of the Patreon are named after different levels to the Rathen. And again, I know in hindsight, the name Rathen, I'm sticking with it because it's been written in all of my pages of my lore, and I'm not going all the way through rewriting them. But I know it invokes like a rat-like name, but it's meant to be Wrath. Like, Wrath. But yeah, I know it conjures the image of rats. They're not supposed to be. It's supposed to be hyenas. Damn it. But yeah, these guys are they're raiders in space. And they're, how do I put this? They're not stupid, but they're not, I don't, again, how do I put this? They're savage. They're brutal. These guys are probably where the most grimdark comes in, because, how do I put this in a YouTube friendly way? Okay, I'll just go out and right explain it. If YouTube demonetizes me, they demonetize me. So the Rathan, they're a raiding species. They don't have a homeworld, and they travel in large clans. Each clan is led by a leader. The leader of the clan is the biggest, the strongest, and the most savage. That's how they choose their leaders, and they don't really choose them. It's really like the previous leader grows weak, his lieutenants will try and kill him and take his spot. And that can happen at any time. The only time that a clan chief has any kind of control over his flock, if you want to call it that, his horde, is if, yeah, might is right. Exactly. So they're kind of like orcs in that regard, is the strongest, the biggest, the toughest is in charge. In terms of technological ability, these guys have an unexplained knack for technology. They can scrap together tech that looks like it barely works, because it does, and make it work. Unlike the orcs, it's not like a psychic ability. They are genuinely making tech that works. Like a human could use it and it could work, but it's very volatile. A lot of their stuff has the risk of exploding upon use. They are crazy, to put it lightly. As a species, they morally, like, they don't have really any ethics, like, not within themselves. Again, might is right is a very big thing. And the fucked up part about their culture is they have women of their species that they use to breed and create more, but sometimes they don't have enough women, so they make do with substitutes. How do I put this? Yeah, this is not going to be YouTube friendly no matter how I put it. The Rathan have the ability to breed with any species that they can insert their stuff. They can breed with any species. And what comes out is pretty much 100% Rathan. Like, what... I have a short story written up where a woman is captured from the Terran Republic, and she is used in this capacity. And the infants are 100% Rathan, so they're big. Like, these things as infants are bigger than human babies, because they grow to be huge. And Rathan, as long as they're alive, never stop growing. Like, they continue to get bigger, and the bigger they are, the smarter they are. Like, that's how Rathan are designed. Effectively, it's speculated in the universe they could be immortal, because they don't get feeble, they don't get, like, bad bones, they don't decay, really. They just keep getting bigger. The only reason that there isn't a planet-sized Rathan out there is because they keep getting killed by their own lieutenants. They keep, like, nipping themselves in the bud. It's like, oh, in this particular raid, the boss got injured. Rip him limb from limb and take his spot. Like, that's the only, they self-regulate themselves in that regard. And in their old lore, it's not known where they came from. All that they are born knowing, like they know, like they're born knowing their language, like they know their language, like they know it from birth, and they also have visions and know the great white coats. The great white coats are their gods, effectively, and they believe that the great white coats will take them to their afterlife if in their life they spend it raiding as much as possible, killing as much as possible. They believe that they're constantly being watched by their gods, and if they ever fail to like steal or raid or kill or breed enough, like if you don't have the biggest numbers in every category of life, you may not be accepted into the afterlife. So there's also that desperation from a zealotous standpoint. I'm not going to spoil that, but you may or may not be on the right track. So the great white coats is what they're worshipping as they do this shit. And they're born knowing them. Like, knowing them of that. So their language and that. And everything else just comes naturally. Again, they have also an odd knack for mechanics and building stuff, but they don't know where that comes from. Like they have no other intrinsic memories. They're probably functionally immortal. They are functionally. It's never been tested though. And this right here, this is one of the clans. This is Clan Rith, and this is War Boss Rith. Rith is so each clan kind of has different like specialties and different colors. The green and orange clan are the ones you least want to see because their biggest specialty is slaves. Now, all Rathan clans and take slaves, and they all raid and take slaves and kill people and eat them. And honestly, that's a better fate than if they capture you alive. But they do also sell things. That's the other side of their coin in the universe is they sell things for parts. So they will deal with anybody who wants to buy stuff from them. Like for example, they're in the universe. The Warborn once made a deal with a Rathan clan ship that was traveling through their space because the Rathans sent out an open band communication where they forced one of their human slaves to speak fluent English. Well, not English, but the local Warborn language. That's another thing. The Warborn, the Sovereignty, and the Terrans all speak. Obviously, I write everything in English, but they all speak their own native tongues. They all have different languages. So there is language barriers. But I just said English just because for communication purposes. So they forced the slave to speak the communication, and once they forced him to speak the communication, they were basically putting out a wideband request to sell stuff, and they were selling everything from slaves to guns that they had designed or stole, to scrap parts, to even some raw resources. So they do both. They raid worlds and keep the stuff for themselves and build stuff out of it and slaves and everything. But they also, they also sell it to other factions. So tyranny forcing them to use English tongue, yeah. Ooh. I'm just stretching. So yeah, that's I'm going in a lot of detail, I know. Every time I talk about Warglaive, I go into these rants. I can't help myself. I love it so much. I have so much passion for it. So, yep, that's to try and wrap it up a little bit. That's the Rathan, and they're super badass, and they're fucking horrifying. One of the most horrifying things in the universe, because especially since, again, they have that dual side. They sometimes are in a world or a sector to trade. Would you like this to become a tabletop game? That's the goal of it. This is a war game I'm developing. Obviously, the setting and everything and like the lore I'm developing primarily at the moment, but I am working on the tabletop. I've even got some prototype book covers and prototype rules sets I'm working on. The problem is I've only had a handful of times to actually test it with some friends. Hold on. Do I have the core rules yet? I do not. I do not. I still need to develop those. Right now, I have a prototype version of the rules, and I'm still testing them. Again, I don't want to put anything out before I know it'll be good. And I'm at the point where I am right now, considering looking around to see if I can hire somebody who might help me with the rule sets. Because that's one place I'm definitely struggling with at the moment, is the rules. I think the core rules I have are really good. It's just the specifics. You need this when it's ready and testing? Hey, I'm working on it. Wait, isn't that the Grifter Norn Queen Kia? Wait. Not surprising. Like the lore, however, I think some of the race names are a bit generic. Hey, that's fine, man. I'm not changing them, but that's fine to think. If you're able to, would you have faction-themed dice? Yes, I would. Do. So I'm just checking them. There we go. You also fuse two worlds to make a new world. Again, I'm fine with the names I got. Like, it's the base lore has got a lot of generic names, I admit, but like the detailed lore has more unique names, I'd say. It's just, I'm attached to the names I've given them. I think, yeah, they're generic, but they work, right? And also in a universe, you'd think that logically you'd go with more simplistic names for like overall factions. And there's also lore for why they named themselves the way that they named themselves. Terran Republic, you can easily guess, but Sovereignty named theirs, because of their governmental system, and the Empress was the one to name it. And I have lore for like why they named themselves the way that they named them. And again, it's fine for you guys to think it's generic, but I don't think that's a bad thing. And I also don't intend to change the names of the factions. I think they're cool. Maybe in the future, like let's say I release the first edition, and that's like the biggest complaint everybody has. Like, oh, the factions are very, very cool. The detailed lore is very, very cool. Just the names are really boring. It's like I might cave at that point. It's like, but until I have like books out and stuff like that, and people can actually like hold in their hand the sources. But the thing is, a lot of things start out like Star Trek, right? That's a generic name. It's trekking through space. It's a space adventure, is effectively what the name means. It's very lame. The name is lame, but what makes it actually cool, what makes people like conjure up cool images when they say it, is because the universe has got so many awesome stories, so many cool captains, adventures, and experiences, and all, like science jargon, fun moments. That's why people, when they say Star Trek, despite the name being generic and boring, it still conjures up just cool imagery, right? So I'm not like stressing about the names being generic. All right. I guess the last thing I'll rant about a little bit is the Gretsch. I know I did a little bit earlier, but I'll do it one more time. I'll just use this image again. So with the Gretsch, they're the second oldest in the galaxy. Now, all the Xenos factions I mentioned, all of them are native to the Shade Galaxy. The human-derived factions, the Sovereignty, the Warborn, and the Terran Republic, all three are not native. They came from our galaxy. What happened there? How come? Why are they here? Even they don't know. Like, they've lost all of it to history. They've been here for over 3,000 years. Some factions have even forgotten they were from elsewhere. But that aside, the ghouls are the oldest or second oldest. It's not known. But they've been around for as long as the Voke have been around. And the Voke was once a much bigger empire than they are now. They once conquered the entirety of the Shade Galaxy. Only a small sect of it they had failed to. And at the time, that was the space that they encountered the Gretsch. So what happened is while they were expanding their empire with their massively powerful ships, technologically wise, they are incredibly powerful. And they were expanding their territory, and then they came across what looked like a large field, like a plasma field. They entered through it because it expanded so far into space, they couldn't detect a way around it or in any direction. So they decided to go through it. They had powerful shielding, strong hulls. They thought they would be fine. They entered the space, and they found out that once they did, they weren't in space anymore. They were traveling through, fluid. Like a gel. It was very strange, just floating in space. They went from being a spaceship, a void ship, to becoming a submarine. Like, they were moving through, and Did you on live stream like a content listening while I'm trucking? Awesome. Love to hear it, Kevin Lang. And thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Yeah, I know we're like way past the Arch interview at this point. I've doubled the length of this stream. but yeah, the Arch interview was the first half. So this is what happens when I talk about the setting I'm working on. I go into these rants. That's what I'm passionate about it. That's what happens. But the Volk entered the space and they were now in a fluid. Now it wasn't water. It was some kind of biofluid. And as they were traveling through, they started to lose connection to the other ships around them. Communication began to break down. Their energy field started to break. And then, through the mistiness of the fluid, came a large, what looked like a creature. Just this massive thing in space moving. And then it launched these several little, like, genetic, like these pus balls at them. And they landed against the ship. And then began to, like, crack into the hull. And then from there, erupted these nasty genetic abominations that began to slaughter all the Volk they encountered, ripping them to pieces and dragging them back, their whole bodies, all the way back to those pods, and were throwing them in these vats, these mucus that began to break down every part of their body. What do you want to give them play testing? That's the thing. I have no idea. As it is right now. I've technically begun playtesting in the sense of I tested one prototype of the rules so far, and they were rough, to say the least. So I kind of had to start over there. So everything I'm showing you guys right now is the lore, but I need help and need to hire somebody to help me with the rules to get further along. I just don't have the excess income. The biggest thing preventing Warglaive Gothic from being a thing at the moment is funds. And I know that sounds like I'm gonna e-beg, but honestly, that's the truth. Like, I just don't have enough money to finish this off and to get further along than I am. Right now, I am struggling to get through. The lore is easy. Like, that's free. Like, I can write that all on documents and PDF files and notepad documents, and I can write them on paper. That's free. That costs me nothing. But where it counts, like designing the miniatures, I'm a 3D artist. Like I've got experience designing 3D models. Like I can share with you guys a couple of shots of the ones I've been working on. Yeah, for example, like some of these are like some promo photos, but these are some of the models I've finished for the game that are, some of them are on Patreon, by the way, that you can pick up for STLs. And yeah, this is all I've got done so far. Now this is just like generic pre-supported bases if anybody wanted them. But yeah, the problem is I just don't have the time, and I don't have the time because I have a day job, and my day job is how I'm affording everything. But I also have daily expenses, for myself. I got to keep myself afloat. I got to pay rent. I got to do all that. So I don't have enough money to constantly be hiring purists to make more and more concept art. I can only do it on a rare occasion. And working and testing the rules, I don't have enough time for that. I gotta go to work and I gotta pay the bills. So I just don't have a lot of things done because I just don't have enough money. So my goal right now to try and help fix that is I'm gonna try and get a lot more done in the background. Get more models done, get more lore done. Try and finish the first book. If I can finish the first book, that'd be a huge help. And then I'm going to put those out in different markets. I'm going to put the models up on the Patreon. I'm going to put I want to use AI for concept art. So many reasons why I don't want to do that. But principally, I don't want to do it because I actually want the art to be unique and cool. And I like working with artists. Like people, I like human beings putting pen to paper. AI, it's soulless, it's pathetic, and honestly, I just don't like the idea of... AI art is great if you just need a reference for artwork, for real artists, for real artwork done by real people. But AI for being the concept art itself, that's just pathetic. And again, I just don't see it as even real art at that point. Art is done by an actual person. Can you imagine if 40K's initial artwork was all AI generated and we didn't have the awesome pieces done by John Blanche? Yeah, no, I hate the idea. So if you want to use AI for reference, that's perfect. That's fine. But using AI for like the thing, no, I just can't agree with that in principle. You can open to the community what with you're comfortable with so far. Fans can add to it over time voluntarily. Uh, I don't want, because that point of making it open source, and I don't want to do that. That for admittedly is for my own personal. Like I do want to turn it into a business. I do want to develop this into a full game, and I obviously I want to open the community up to fanfics and stuff like that. But to actually define the universe and create the universe, call it selfish, but no, I don't want to do that. I do actually want it to be my thing and my baby that I develop, and I'll reap the rewards and suffer the punishments of doing so. But no, I don't want to do that. This is something I actually want to develop myself and make a full thing. So, yeah, that's just where I stand. Plus, once you make something open source, it might as well be 40K at that point in terms of its inconsistencies. Actually, it might be worse because like one fan is going to want one thing to go this way and one fan's going to want this thing to look like this. It's going to be ripped apart from what I envision, and I don't want that. It will be yours, just the jobs that add to your vision. That could work. I have debated it. I'm still debating it. Right now, my biggest draw with that is I don't want people to do stuff for free. Mainly for two reasons. One, principally, because I think people, if you're going to make artwork, if you're going to make models, if you're going to make stuff, you should be paid and compensated for that awesome stuff. Like, you deserve that, right? I want to hire people. I don't want to have people do the work for me and then I benefit off of it, and then they just, granted, you can make the argument, well, they benefit with like a new setting, a new universe, but I don't think they benefit in the ways they matter most, which is I do think you make something like that, you deserve financial compensation. I believe that on a principle. So I want employees, I want like to hire people, but I don't want people to do it for free. That's on a principle standpoint. And then there's the more legal standpoint, which is if I use free stuff developed by other people and I didn't pay for it, I don't have any legal claim to own it, and then therefore police it and control it. And that could create a whole slew of legal issue. If for example, if someone made like a really cool model for the universe and I used it and put it in official marketing and started like printing the models and selling them, and let's say I say something that causes them to get a hair across their ass, they legally can go after me. They can be like, oh, well, he's using my copyrighted material. I made it and he didn't pay me for it. He's just using it. And then, well, yeah, the rest would, they wouldn't be wrong to take me to court. Like, I wouldn't have any defense. I'd legally be open to being attacked and brought down. So as much as it sounds cool in principle, you got to keep in mind the consequences. Open source is good to generic stuff, not games. I agree. So that's where like I'm kind of standing right now. Now, I do want to hire more people. I'm saving up money right now, especially with my new job. I'm going to have more consistent hours in the schedule. So I'll be able to save up money. And I'm going to start hiring more 3D artists to get more models done. Because again, this is most of what I've been able to get done so far on my own. So yeah, that's one thing I'm working towards right now, and I'm trying to hire more people to help me get it done. My goal, my hope, and I don't want to give this timeline too concretely because if it doesn't end up happening, it doesn't end up happening. Because again, I got a day job. I am trying to keep up with the YouTube thing, trying to do this regularly. I'm trying to defend 40K right now. I'm also trying to keep myself sane by engaging in my hobbies. Because as much as this does, like, this is fun to make and work on, long hours, like modeling a model or writing the lore, it can get a little fatiguing. So I do need to take the occasional break and, like, just paint a mini or do something brainless. So, yeah. Who knows? Maybe I'll win the lottery. Like, if I win, like, I don't know, like the Powerball, I don't know what's out right now, but I've thought about, like, putting in, like, a lottery ticket or something just on the, like, 1 millionth chance I win. If that happened, I quit my job and this would be done within the year. That literally, if I just had the money, this would be done already. But I don't have enough. And I hate e-begging. It does suck. But at the same time, I kind of have to a little bit to try and get Warglaive done. So that's That's the, not crossroads, but that's like the position I'm in at the moment. Is I have this really cool thing. I have the full idea developed. But what faction is a swarm faction in your game? The Gretsch, easily the Gretsch. They are next to them would also the for like an insect swarm. There really isn't one, but for like a horde army that is big in numbers and overwhelming, like a tidal wave, it'd be the Gretsch. But if you're looking for a tidal wave, there's another horde army, and that's the Rathen. The Rathen they're a horde army as well, just in a different nature. They both are horrific to fight because best case scenario, you die. Oh, there's OnlyFans. Yeah. I'm gonna sell a lot on OnlyFans. Yeah, my fat ass is gonna get lots of support over there. Now, right now, I'm debating on doing like a Kickstarter or a equivalent. I don't know if there's like another website that does the same thing Kickstarter does, but I'm thinking about setting up something like that and like advertising it. Maybe ask Art. Like I'd have to pay Arch for an advertising spot, so I'd have to save up money for that as well. Right now, like it's either that or keep up with a Patreon. And the Patreon, like I can't blame anyone for not subscribing to it at the moment because again, my progress is slow. It's one guy doing everything, and with the exception of the 2D concept art, that's all Purist. So it's been slow progress. Indiegogo, I might check out Indiegogo, but yeah, I'm debating on doing that Kickstarter, Indiegogo, some kind of crowdfunding site, and if I can get all the money together, I'd hammer this shit out. Like I'd be done already. The only hesitation I have with Indiegogo and stuff like that is trying to figure out like what packages to offer people. You know, it's like, oh, if you support at this level, this is what you get. Like, I'm trying to come up with ideas for that. Also, I am considering stuff. It's just it's slow progress. That's why like as I rant about all this stuff, and I know it sounds really cool, and this gets people hyped up, and they're like, oh, I really want this. I can't wait. When are you going to be done? I don't know. And that's the part that hurts the most to say is I wish I could give you guys like, hey, done. Like, it'll be done at this date. You can get your models, get the first edition, get the rule book, everything. I don't have that. Because I have a day job. I'm trying to keep up with YouTube. You know, how else am I going to advertise this when it's done? Like, I do need to keep this up a little bit. And, yeah. Like, I'm at a stiff part of the road. So, I'm working on it. Warglaive, Gothic, cool name. It's not Wargrave, it's Warglaive. Like a glaive. Still, that's a cool name too, though. Wargrave, Gothic. Cool name. Has a very Battle Mace 42 million flavor to it. If you want to use art people make for you, you could make some sort of waiver they agree to. True. I consider that. I'm gonna talk. Actually, as you say that, I might talk. I have a buddy of mine who just finished college, and he was going to be a lawyer, and unless I misunderstood what he said, he did study copyright and like fair use and legal usage of stuff. So I'm gonna talk to him, see if he can give me a lowdown, and if a waiver will work. Which it could be like mods in Skyrim. Mods added quite a bit to the game. Yeah, I wish it could be too. Wargrave sounds like Necronica. Anyway, I've ranted enough. I turned an interview stream into I've doubled it in length to talk about my tabletop game I'm developing. But yeah, like that is my rant. Again, for anyone hopping in now, there was an interview with Arch. It was the first hour and a half, and I went on my rant like I always do with Warglaive. And yeah. So if you guys are here for the Arch interview, don't worry. It did happen. It's at the beginning. Go ahead and watch that. He was awesome to have on. I really appreciated it. And I had fun talking to you guys about the female Custodes BS. I had fun talking about all that. And I also had fun ranting about Warglaive. But if I keep going, we'll be here for another 4 hours. So I'm glad you guys are excited for the idea, and it's really cool. I am working on ways to not only get money together so I can hire more people to help me out. I'm also trying to figure out like different like loopholes and stuff. I'm working things out. I'm working them out. But biggest barriers to finishing this or getting more progress done is time and money. I wish I had all the money in the world. But I think everyone wishes that, but for different reasons. Why do you want $1 million? Well, I'd like to feed my family and keep future generations in college and educated. And why would you like $1 million? I'd like to fund a tabletop war game. Is that it? Yeah. Beauty of being a nerd. Beauty of being a nerd. Anyway, look forward to it in the future. I'm glad you look forward to it, man. I do, and I am doing my best. It's just slow. It's slow progress, but I get there. Anyway, love you guys. Make sure to leave a like before you guys head out, and hope you guys enjoyed the interview. Hope you guys enjoyed the rant about my own tabletop, and I will catch you guys next time. Bye bye.